Welcome to the CBS ONE.CON Special Nordic Finland event with us today. We are really happy to have all of you on board. So my name is Tanja Nenonen, and I am the Consulting Director at CBS Finland, and I will be one of your hosts today. So welcome with us today, and we are having the short intro before we start the first presentation, and I will walk through our agenda for today first. So we have many interesting presentations coming during the day. So the first one, we will start with Jani Parton and Nina Seiler. They are telling about Oriola's journey to SAP for HANA. So I'm sure it will be a really interesting topic for all of us. And after that, at 11 o'clock, we start with how Amos Sports globally manage e-invoicing compliance, and we have Daniel Marosi from Amos Sports and from CBS, Till Wolf and Franziska Hempel to the presentation. And the third presentation will start 11:45, and we have our colleague Morten Meyer from Logistics telling about challenging the status quo of supply chain management and the logistics. And after that, we will have a half an hour lunch break, and also we are able to chat here in the meanwhile. So me and Nina will be online, so we can have a free chat if you want to join during the lunch break. So we have Laura Äänenvaara and Tea Haavisto joining and telling about the day S/4HANA and main drivers for the strategic direction. And after that, we will have our colleague Lorenz Brefke from CBS Americas tell about the selected data transition in the private cloud. So these are our presentation today. And then we are closing around 2:30 East European time, have a short wrap up of the day. So this is our agenda for today. And then a few things about the practicalities. Let me see if the slide will be updating. So now you can see it. So basically, first of all, this event will be recorded, and after the event, you will receive the link to your email. So in case you are not able to join all the day, or you want to look some of the presentation later, so that's possible. And all the participants are muted from our side. And if you have any questions or you want to comment something, you have two ways to do it. We have a chat box or questions. You can see that in the panel in this tool. And also you can raise your hand if you want to use the audio and place the questions. And we have scheduled these meetings or the presentations so that presentations are more or less 30 minutes in the beginning, and then we have 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes in the end for the questions and answers, and maybe also a small break before we start the next one. So we try to keep the schedule so that the starting times will stay as in the agenda, and then we have a little bit flexibility always after the presentation to talk and in case don't need the full 45 minutes, we can have also small break between. So that's we are going forward today. Good. So I also would like to invite Stefan Risse to join for a second. So he's the member of the board of CBS and my boss. So would you like to join for a second and tell about the CBS few words? So
yeah, thank you very much, Tanja. Yeah. Also from my side, a warm welcome to these digital ONE.CON, especially for customers, possible customers, and already customers in Finland. My name is Stefan Risse. I'm a member of the executive board at CBS. I'm also CEO at CBS Finland, and some words to CBS. We are, let's say, headquartered and located in Germany, in Heidelberg. We have several subsidiaries in Germany, in the DACH region with Switzerland and Austria. We have a technology center in Spain. We have 2 offices in the US. We have a service center in Malaysia and a consulting practice in Singapore. Yeah, that means we are able to deliver our services in all time zones across the world. And that's new. We started in January this year with a practice in Finland. Why we are doing these? We have already a long-term relationship to several Finnish customers, and we thought that it's now time also to be located in Finland to support our customers also with, let's say, local consultants to make to make it a little bit easier for us to be on site. As we know, actually at COVID, it's not so easy, but we hope that it will be changed. The game will change, and that's the idea, that we have consultants in the future in Finland who can help you with any kind of projects. And I guess in the next few hours, you will see partially what we are able to deliver. I wish you now all a pleasant webinar, and I hope that you will use the possibilities also to raise questions and to start discussions. That would be my wish. And now I wish all a very interesting few hours and interesting discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. And if we go one step or slide further before we go to first presentation, just maybe a couple words about CPS Finland. So as already Stefan told, why we have opened up the office in Finland. So our office is actually here in Espoo, Keilaniemi. Maybe Finnish participants knows the Accounter Tower, the tall building in Keilaniemi. So we are located here, and we have started now beginning of the January with a small team. So we are still a little bit on the ramping up everything. In other hand, we are full speed with working with our ongoing customer projects here in Finland, but same time we are now building up the small team here and get everything started. And even like already Stefan mentioned, we are still pretty small here in Finland as we just started, but anyway, we have the whole CBS team and network available for all the projects here in Finland. And target is that we are here, the small team on site in Finland, close to the customers. We are able to work hopefully some days soon when this COVID pandemic is over, more also into customers' offices as well. But we have a team here in Finland, and it will be then the project will be delivered with the global team, with the German colleagues or from the colleagues from our technology hub from Malaysia, for example. So that's the target. But that was very short introduction, and I think now it's time to go for the first presentation. So we are having Jani Partonen from Oriola. Jani, welcome. Are you there?
Hello. So nice to see you.
See you for a while, and also Nina Seiler from CBS. So you are going to tell a little about Oriola's journey for S/4HANA. So I'm actually very looking forward to hear about it, and I'm sure all the other participants as well. So I guess we get started then. And Nina, I guess you have now the presenter rights, so you will continue from there on. And please, stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you for having us today. Also, thank you, Jani, for joining us. As said, efficiency and stability through continuous improvement, the Oriola S/4HANA journey. So Jani and myself, we will share the presentation. So thanks for joining us on this one. Sorry that we are struggling a little bit with our digital transmission here. let's jump into the presentation. So Jani, maybe you can introduce yourself and.
Yeah, okay, thanks Nina, and thanks Tanya. It's very nice to be here, and it's great that you have now office in the Finland. So we have a long background with CBS, and I think that my previous company was maybe the first customer in the country, and then started that journey for establishing office. So yeah, my name is Jani Partonen, and I'm working for Oriola Group as a director for IT applications and infrastructure. And like I said, I have a long background with the CBS already in the previous life, and then we of course want to work with the best and ensure that our SAP development and operations are stable and in the edge in that sense that we have the right resources in right place. And now I tell bit history that what we have done in Oriola, and then we are sharing our plans with Nina that what we are doing on this very moment. But if we start from the company presentation and tell that what we are doing, so we are a company of 4,300 experts. Our net sales is pretty much 1.7 billion euros, and we are delivering average 30,000 boxes every day. So we are also in the pharmacy business, but then we have a large warehouse and logistic operations in Sweden and Finland. In Sweden, we have a 2.8 million customers in the loyalty programs. This is pretty much our Kronans Apotek brand, which means that 320 plus physical pharmacies over the country and web shop. And then we are market leader in the dose dispensing business with 117,000 patients. So in Sweden, we are known as Svensk Dos, and then in Finland, we are acting through the local pharmacies with the pharma service and packaging pills to the plastic bags and delivering those to the patients. And then if we go for the next one, we can discuss that business setup a bit later. So our purpose is health for life. Our vision is that we are caring enabler for the healthier tomorrow, and then we bring sustainable products and solutions for the health and well-being. And then if we go to the next one, maybe key point here is that our target be carbon neutral for 2030, and of course this is challenging. Thus, Sweden and Finland are long countries, and we have a centralized operations for the warehouse, so we need to deliver those well-being products and pharmaceuticals for the pharmacies all over the country. So this is really tough target, and then of course we need to care our people and ensure employee engagement, and then we see that we have our role in the society as well. And then Nina, please, if you take next one. A few words. This is the last one from the company presentation. So we have a pretty much three cornerstones in our business offering, and that first one is consumer product, and in practice this means physical pharmacies, Kronans Apotek in Sweden. Like I said earlier, 320 plus physical locations all over the country, and then we have a very extensive web shop there, and so it's normal Scandinavic pharmacy offering, and then well-being products through the web shop. Then pharma is offering logistic and warehouse services for the pharma companies, so who are manufacturing pharmaceuticals, and then also we have a different kind of professional services for the pharma companies, like a clinical trial information and that type of products. And then retail is well-being products, dose dispensing services, and pharmacy staffing services for the pharmacies in Finland. And then operations in the background, supporting our businesses with the warehouse and logistic operations, and also that production for the dose dispensing. But I think that this is pretty much the company presentation, and then if we go to the background what SAP is in the Oriola organization, and if we start in somewhere in the 2015, 2016, I wasn't in the company at that time, but based on the discussions and knowledge, so that it was a time when company thought that they need to change ERP. So there was a very old-fashioned legacy ERP, and then actually that upgrade of the legacy system was not the real option because of the new requirements from the regulators and from the law. So then there was also need to unify and harmonize our processes. So then, of course, the selection put focus on the tools that we can use over the countries and fulfill the legislation in the different environments, and then from the system wise are scalable. And then it was a requirement that at least we can offer common system services for pharma and retail businesses. They are a bit different, but not that much that we cannot work through the one setup. And then after evaluation, decision was to implement SAP S4 and then standalone extended warehouse management. So warehouse operations in our business are that much complicated that we cannot use actually that EWM, what is embedded for the ERP or S4, and then the requirement in our cases is to have a separate box for that one. And then we ended up to HANA decision and to avoid large-scale migrations later on. And
maybe nice to mention here that the S4HANA and EWM implementation, so S4HANA 15.11 was used back then because there was no other version available, and SCM EWM 9.3. And both of those implementations have been more or less done as a greenfield implementation because Oriola has not had any SAP system in their system architecture so far. And everything has been created from scratch as needed for Oriola business.
Exactly, that's correct.
One of the early S4HANA greenfield implementations.
Yeah, I think that we were one of the first ones in
yes.
Finland in that sense. And then there was of course targets for the implementations, that ability to fulfill audit trail requirements. So it's regulated business, and so there's let's say certain quite tough regulations for the product batch follow-up, and so then SAP is one of the software providers that can fulfill those requirements for the medical industry. Then of course there was the aim to improve warehouse and logistics process efficiency, then get true visibility for the business operations and business transactions, and then also be ready for the new changes in the regulations and law, and so be able to fast adoption of new things in the future, not only from the business side but also from the legal perspective. And then if we go to the next slide, so this is more like the clarifying that what we are doing, because it might sound a bit let's say complex, or there's many variations in our business, because we have pharmacies and we have a dose dispensing and retail products and logistics services and staffing, but in the end our main task is to handle those material flows from pharma companies, pharma suppliers and retail suppliers through our logistic operations and locations to public and private healthcare sector, hospital pharmacies, then normal pharmacies, retail companies. One example, like we are handling that pansuola in Finland, so that is typical retail market salt product, and so all S Group and Kesko and those are our customers as well. And then vets, so we have also wide variety of products for the animals. And then in the end, in Sweden, we are a bit closer to end customers, so we have our own pharmacy chain. But then in other ways, we are offering those services for the pharmacies that they can serve consumer, and that patient safety is our guiding star in many ways. And then let's go to the next one. So if I start this one and then I hand it over to Nina. So basically, this is something has happened already pretty much from the 2018, and I think that our journey started a bit earlier with CBS, with the discussions and building the safety net for certain things, and so we decided to change our AMS partner, and that was a quite extensive project from the, let's say, from the commercial negotiations or even the RFP preparation to implementation. It was pretty much 5 months, and typically you all know that it's typically takes something like even 1 year is not that bad, but 9+ months, and so there was a very extensive project for that one, and same time we had project ongoing with the health checks of our S4 and EWM with CBS guys, and so that creates foundation that we optimize our current operations and ensure that we are supporting our business. But Nina, do you want to say a few words that there was 3 packages what we worked through, let's say, a bit more than 1 year, and then do some changes with our environment?
Yeah, so based on our health check findings, which we have done on the S4 side and also on the EWM side, we identified together with Oriola counterparts topics which should be changed in the future in order to be more efficient in the future, to size or ease down daily operations on the ERP and as well on the logistics side, on the EWM side. And also a target is to improve the customer experience. That means when our processes, IT processes, SAP processes will be faster and more efficient, we also increase then the benefit for the customer side. And therefore we identified a couple of topics which we have changed on the EWM and S4 side. It's mentioned here as continuous change request development. So we are still working on a couple of developments on the Finnish side in order to improve their daily operations. And I marked here in the next step all the projects in which we were heavily involved. We for sure, as Janni said, when Oriola decided to change the RMS partner, we were more or less the security net in case there were any issues or incidents to be solved, and the new RMS partner would not be ready, that we could take over this topic. But our focus was here more on this continuous improvements. And besides of that, we also supported in an EWM pre-study for the Swedish side, and also made a proof of concept for the Swedish business for all the logistics processes. And besides of that, creating the future SAP roadmap, we also supported Janni and his team by doing this. But as you see, there are also other projects in parallel, like the Solution Manager upgrade. You had quite an old Solution Manager installation. This had what was never being upgraded, so there was a big task in order to get this Solution Manager upgraded to the actual newest version. Also in order to secure all the validation requirements we have in the pharma industry. So that was quite heavy on the team. And also you moved from Oriola has moved from the platform to an external service provider here. So this has happened also in parallel.
Yeah, and of course, in our case, that platform change is also, that is more like a day-to-day business, but once again, we are in the regulated environment, so it requires a bit more testing, and need to be sure that goes well, because we need to deliver medicines every day, and so it's extremely important that we are doing those in the safety way and ensure that patient safety from the all aspects.
Yeah.
And then if we go to the next one, maybe as a starting words for this, so I would like to underline that these are now pretty much plans. So there's many things, of course, ongoing, but this is our plan way forward, and so this is not yet confirmed fully, and we are still working with the setting up the program, and we are so there's still things that we need to think about, and so this is years forward, so nothing is going to happen over the night, so this is long-lasting journey what we are doing here, and we are now in the planning ways, but maybe the highlight of this is that our aim is to have one harmonized SAP platform over Sweden and Finland, and then that requires certain steps. So we need to change the legacy system in Sweden. We need to also change the warehouse systems there, and then in the end, when we are ready with the Sweden, then we are aiming to migrate Finland to the same box, and but as said, that this is now more like a drawing table for the activities, but meanwhile we need to keep our operations up and running, and then do also continuous development for the existing systems. But then Nina, if you have something to add for that one, so
yeah, just a comment. So also here, CBS is involved in a lot of topics. Also here in the upper side, common design topics. So we are helping in order to do this implementation. And on the next slide, maybe I jump directly to this one. I think the next ones make it a little bit clearer what and how we are doing this out of a technical perspective. So as Yanni has said, at the moment, this is the as-is situation. Oriola is running an S4HANA on-premise version 15.11 in Finland. That's why the Finnish flag is here. And an EWM 9.3 on HANA, also in Finland for the daily warehouse operations. We have also a PO system. We have a GRC system for all our authorizations. We have the solution manager in use. As said, this is upgraded to the actual versions. A lot of surrounding systems which help us in our daily operations. And here in red, here are the Swedish legacy systems. And as Yanni has stated, the target is to be on the long run in one global ERP system. That means S4 system and a global EWM system, so that Sweden and Finland are running on the same SAP system. So this is our target mission. And how do we achieve this? As you see, the 15.11 is quite an old SAP S4HANA version, and also the EWM is quite ancient already, and we have to get rid of this, and also we have to have an upgrade here, because talking about the 15.11 processes which are available there, Oriola Finland needs new functionality in order to be even more efficient in the future, in order to have new functionalities in the future, and this is holding us a little bit back. So we have this vision to have both Finland and Sweden in an actual S4HANA version running on the ERP as well as on the EWM side. So how do we get there? We have an interim step in which we have to duplicate our SAP systems more or less. So Finland will still run as it is for the moment in their actual system environment. We will still do some change requests implementation in order to make the processes here even better, but more or less it will stay like it is for the moment. We are focusing on the Swedish side here, and the target and for the EWM side, as I said, we have done a proof of concept. So this was for the Swedish processes here, a greenfield implementation on the 2020 version of S4HANA for EWM purposes. So this is now running since since a couple of months already. Talking about the S4 side or the ERP side for Sweden, we took a copy of the 1511 system. So we have done a technical system copy, taking over all the customizing, taking over all the developments, which is used for Finnish business. And this is our system foundation for the future SAP implementation for Sweden, and also the future base for Finland. And I will show here, I have prepared an animation. I hope this is working. So first, as we are working on bringing part of the EWM, Swedish EWM functionality in our target system. So this is one of the running projects at the moment. We have here a couple of guys from our daughter company, the Logistics, helping us here. Also, we are doing at the moment a minimal viable product for the first retail processes for the Swedish business. So we will use, as said, the Finnish baseline customizing, reuse as much as possible, and just create those processes now which are not reflected on the Finnish side or must be changed due to Swedish business requirements. So as said, this should be our target system in which also Finland will move in on the long run. So we are talking about like our template processes, which should be built up here. So this is our first step. We will have retail business, part of the retail business in the S4HANA 2020 version available. And then we will migrate the S4HANA 1511 Finnish solution in our new box. And at some time somewhere, we will also migrate our EWM processes from Finland into our S4HANA EWM box. So here are a lot of steps in between, as you say. That's why we have to have this big program. There are a lot of surrounding systems to be taken over and also to be created new or made to be made available for the Swedish business, because they have been used on the Finnish side already. So there are a lot of steps in between, and what Janni has showed, that's quite an easy view on the roadmap. So we have a lot of actions in between, but this should show how our vision to get to a one harmonized SAP platform for Sweden and Finland, that we, on the long run, the Finnish business as well as the Swedish business are running on the same SAP boxes.
Yeah, exactly, and like I said earlier, that's why we are still pretty much planning and testing many things that we are not fully confirmed that how we are doing that one, but there's still some work to do, and then requires very much focus and dedication for this. But this is, let's say, the direction where we are now aiming to go.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, then maybe you saw that there's a big program what we are now be doing, and also planning activities there, and then there's a few key players that what we see that is important for us and how we are doing our work. So our own role in those activities is that we are of course program owner and responsible for that, and doing decisions and ensuring that Oriola requirements are taken in consideration, and we are building system for our business needs. But then we have one challenge, of course, that we have a quite, let's say, thin organization from SAP expertise perspective. We have, of course, good process experts and very much knowledge our business, but then we don't have all the SAP resources in-house what is needed, and then from that perspective, CBS is of course acting as our implementation and configuration partner for the new application development, and in technology advisor and technical project management role, but then CBS has also very important role as being our, let's say, with Oriola hat in our solution architect roles and also in the concept owner roles in the various areas, and so without that knowledge, it's very difficult to drive these type of things. Then we have a separated fully that Atos is our AMS partner, and they are running operations for our production system, but of course there's certain things that they need to plan, support, handover, and various tasks and test automation for the program as well. T-System, our new hosting partner, ensure that our production platform and project platforms are up and running and deliver performance for that one. And then SAP is pretty much only software and license provider from our perspective. And then if we go for the next one, so this is pretty much explaining that how we have arranged our activities and operations around our delivery for the external and internal customers. So as said many times, that patient safety is our guiding star every time, and so we need to ensure that we are not making mistakes with the process, and right medicines are finding right place in Sweden and Finland. So from system perspective, we aim that we have a in-house service management. We have a conceptual knowledge, but is now extended with the CBS guys, and then we have a strong business process ownership. Then in the other hand, we are outsourcing SAP AMS support and of course platform services. For our size company, it's a bit difficult to ramp up all the extensive knowledge for the data center and also for the AMS with the wide service hours. So we thought that is part what we can put outside and then focus more on the, let's say, core knowledge and what is important for our business. Then of course inside we need to have a strong key user network and especially related with extended warehouse management and warehouse operations, because that is the complex part in our case. And then we need to have trusted and carefully selected development partners, and now I am pointing CBS, so that is the important part of our things, because we can of course run our current things, but then if we want to develop something else, we need help with that one. And then of course we have a business driven demand and prioritization of the things, so it's important to know that in which order we are doing things. And as said earlier, so we are GXP regulated. We have a very strong common management system in the company, and then standard operating procedures guiding us, because there is many customer audits and regulator audits during the year, and we need to ensure that we are delivering quality IT with the promise that we have given for the customers, and keeping that patient safety as a guiding star. And then I think that next one is the last slide what we have, and so this is bit that finding from the history and from everyday life, that what is good things to keep in mind. So like said many times, that people are important thing, that we have right skills and SAP knowledge in the organization. So that is one of the key success factors, that how we can run programs and development successfully, that we have truly that process knowledge and SAP knowledge available. Organization wise, we need to ensure that there's a clear responsibilities in the organization and the governance processes, and then understand the workload. So we know that things are not done with the left hand, so things normally requires time and focus, so we can't expect that that is something what you try to do as too small amount of time. And process wise, I don't know how many times that has been said, but master data is always in the critical part, and then need to remember that do not try to move legacy processes and functionalities to the new SAP. So it requires that we truly look those best practices and then rethink processes.
Yeah, and
program and
Sorry to interrupt.
Please.
Also a comment from my side, talking especially about we will set up now the future for the Oriola SAP processes. So since we are now starting with a so-called minimal viable product for the Swedish retail business, we also have to think already about how the processes should act in the future within SAP. Therefore, we have this common design topic. So all the items, all the processes which have to be thought through already now, talking about this minimal viable product or this small project we are now tackling. We have a lot of items. If we now build those up in a wrong way, it will hurt us in the future when we go for the full-blown implementation for Sweden. So this is quite crucial also to have the right people already now in the project, available for the project, and talking about people and organization. As Yanni said, just doing it with the left hand and not being dedicated to the project, this is really hurting us. This will put delay on the project if those guys, which are crucial for the project because they have to define the future way of working, are not yet available. And because we need to have some baseline decisions to be taken already now. Also, we know this might be just relevant in 1 year ahead of time. So that's very crucial. So when you have a big program ahead of you, and I know a lot of you that you have it, please take care that you have the right people dedicated to the project already in this early pre-study phase or pre-implementation phase, or however you call it. So that's very crucial. Yeah.
And then program perspective. So of course, in our case, we try to mitigate risk as much as possible, and continuous risk evaluation, and then thinking new ways how we can keep that very much in the control, and then do risk analysis, good plans, and then stick to the plan and then deliver minimum viable product, and system wise. Just saying that what is decided, then keep template and avoid all the customization, because then that is long-lasting decision that then upgrades and the future development is easier if you minimize customization or you have no customization in the system in that sense. And then from go live perspective, I think that there's maybe two important things that there's a clear fact-based evaluation for the deployment and go live and good rehearsals and these type of things that people truly knows what to do, and there's a plan B's and then maybe even plan C's in place that if something goes wrong. But then one important thing what is not often looking in the project, because of course IT guys typically focus on the technical stuff and what happens inside the company, but I think that equally important is that do cooperation with the business side in the way that they have a good cooperation and discussion with the customers, that that there's expectation management in place, that customers tolerate lower services 2 or 3 weeks if something goes wrong, because then it's way much easier with the customer side and business side that if the expectation has been set on the right level. So that's why it's important that there is a business ownership in the project and they know what is happening, and then also do the preparation in the customer interface, because that is something what IT maybe can't deliver for them. So it's up to organization, but IT can support that as well. But this was pretty much my presentation. Nina, do you have anything to add for the words?
No, so far so good.
Okay.
And we have already one question from a person out of this participants. Do you recall what were the reasons for choosing T-System as a hosting partner?
Yeah, we had actually quite large, let's say, evaluation, and there was many participants in the RFP program, and so we did pre-study very carefully, and then of course in our case it's not always of course, price is also one of the aspects, but in our case, it's quality, how they are doing then, and the maturity of the processes and the reliability to offer those kind of services. And in our case, T-System is one of the largest service providers for the SAP platforms, and also they have very well thought processes there, what they're going to do if something goes wrong, because that disaster recovery is also very important for us. But there was also many other good players, but in our case this time, T-Systems qualified to be our partner on that.
Tanya here speaking. So I have also one question here. So you are already quite good track with your S/4HANA journey. So would you have some tips for the companies or people who are now planning it? So what has been most challenging, or some tips of course there was a good summary already, but what has been most challenging for Oriola for the
of course,
journey?
I have a background from the EEC and then also from R3 already, but then we started from S4 directly. So in that sense, I don't have now that good understanding about the migration, but then I don't know, does that differ that much as a system? Of course, there's many other things that didn't take into consideration. I think that one tip is that it's important to put enough focus on the technical platform and how you set your parameters from system performance perspective, because it's not going to be something that the platform works totally the same than in the old version. So I think that the technical part is something what you need to think also very thoroughly.
Yes. Any other questions or comments now?
We have one more question coming from the chat. To what degree do your warehouse processes differ from warehouse to warehouse? Was one question.
Yeah, of course, the different locations from different time span, and there has been different people to create those ones. There's of course things that differs, but I think that applies always between the warehouses, especially when you have a full warehouse operations in place. There's something what you can reuse, and but then of course there's things what you need to localize.
And another question, what were the reasons to copy over the S/4HANA 15.11 to the new system?
Yeah, I think that it was something that we are building now common system for 2 countries, and there has been already done extensive work for processes in Finland. So then in other hand, we need to understand that do we have some customization there, and then if we already have certain processes used in Finland, then the starting point is to look that can we utilize the same setup for Sweden, because in the end we are going to be in the same box. So it's more like that understanding what we have and then reuse, and not trying to invite wheel again.
And at the moment, the Swedish team is checking the business requirements from which has been defined for the Finnish solution, and identify if we have a delta compared to the Finland solution, or if we can take over the processes as they are. We hope that we can take over a lot of them, especially for retail business. We know for the pharma business we may have some changes, which will also accelerate then the Finnish business when Finland is moving into the same box. But this is ongoing at the moment, and it looks very good. Yeah.
But that is part of the work what we need to now do very carefully and understand that how that impacting our future plans.
Yeah.
Very good. Any more questions? Do you have? Probably those has been come to Nina you to chat, as I'm not able to see them at the moment. So still a few minutes time to ask if anything pops up to your mind.
Yeah, and of course, if there's something that you want to ask later on one-to-one, then you can find me from the LinkedIn, or then also it's quite easy to find phone number with that name. So then just pick up the phone and call. So I'm more than happy to help you.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, Jani, to have you
Thanks,
on board.
thanks.
Tell us how Oriola is approaching for S/4HANA, and Nina as well. So now we have 5 minutes, and let's have a small break, and then we will start at 11 o'clock with the next presentation. So thank you, Jani and Nina.
Okay, thanks, Tanya and Nina.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's 11 o'clock. So let's see if I get the techniques. Techniques works a little bit better now. I don't know if you're able to see me again, but should be able to see at least at the starting slide. So we have the first interesting presentation behind, and now we are ready to move the next one. So we are having Daniel Marosi from Amersport Corporation, welcome. And also Till Wolf and Franziska Hempel from CBS. And you are going to present us how Amersport are globally managed the e-invoicing compliance. So this is other very interesting topic. So welcome everybody. Are you able to hear and see?
We are able to hear you and see your slide. Thank you, Tanya.
So I guess I will give you your presenting rights. So is it going to be to the...
You can give it to
Till?
me, please.
Okay, to you, Franziska. Perfect. So you will get the lead for the slides. And I guess stage is yours. We are happy to get to hear more about the e-invoicing.
Can you let me know, please, if you can see the slides completely, not the presenter mode?
I think we can see the slides, and we can also see the cameras. So looks good for me at least.
Okay, perfect. Then let's get started. So let me put that over here, just so I can see. So welcome everyone, thanks for having us here. I'm happy to present or to start, actually to introduce this presentation. With me, I have my colleague Till Wolf and Daniel Marosi from Amersport. Let me introduce myself first quickly. I'm with CBS for more than 12 years now, working in the sales area. Have specialized myself mostly to Brazil and South America rollout, but also done e-invoicing projects and other implementation projects, mainly, of course, in the SD area. I have also taken over the competence center management for sales, and I am going to move to Finland soon. So I'm going to join our small team there. So, and I'll be happy to take over the responsibility for e-invoicing for Nordics there. And that's also why I'm here today, presenting an introduction at least. And but I'll hand over to my colleagues first to introduce themselves. So, Daniel, do you want to start?
Yes, hello everybody. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Daniel Marosi from Amersport. I'm leading we call that ESS Business Solutions Finance team. It's more or less 90%, 95% SAP, so could also call it SAP Finance and Controlling. The global team lead for this one. I'm with Amersport since 4.5 years now, and my background is that I came from consulting. I was with Accenture for 6-7 years. Before that with T-Systems. And yeah, in my position now, responsible for topics like e-invoicing, but of course also everything else in this broader area of SAP Finance and Controlling for the whole group of Amersport and all the brands behind that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, hi. Also, welcome from my side. This is Till Wolf from CBS speaking. So I'm with CBS for 8 years now, and I'm the product owner for our activities in the e-invoicing area.
Thank you too. So on our agenda today is a short introduction of the e-invoicing in general, and then of course we'll introduce AMA Sports as a company to you. We'll share the experience of AMA Sports in the e-invoicing area, and also have some more information on our CBS cloud systems and the e-invoicing in Finland, of course. And in the end, we will have time for some questions, so feel free to post them in the chat already in the meantime, and we will get to them later. So what is electronic e-invoicing? It's basically that you issue, transmit, and receive invoices in a structured electronic format, and these can be processed then automatically and electronically. And that's rather general description. How did that start? So basically all our customers are suppliers who have to provide goods or services to their customers. And how do they invoice their customers? Usually with paper copies. That was the past. In the times of digitalization and saving paper to protect the environment, etc., everything should be in a more electronic way and in a more digital way. So the business-to-business requirement is already to send invoices electronically instead of on paper. However, all over the world, there are coming into place some more requirements also of legal nature. So there are governments, especially in South America, for example, that want to control the tax situations and what is being sent out to customers. If the calculations are correct, they want to see what is happening in their businesses. So they are actually trying to, or not trying, they're actually getting in between our suppliers and customers. So we need to send our invoices to a government first, especially in LATAM. That's the history where it came from, or where it started already many years ago. And they will authorize an invoice before we can actually provide goods to our customers. That's the situation in Brazil. For the past 5 years now, this is also coming more and more to the European side, where it's not so much the authorization of the government, although that's also the case in some countries, but it's more the electronic transfer. And there are directions or laws, let's say, that provide a legal format that you can use, or an official format that can be used. And we as CBS take care that this is done. Also, APAC is inventing or introducing more and more of this electronic e-invoicing topics into their business processes. So to summarize that, the e-invoicing global challenge is not only sending invoices, but it's also about tax reports or goods movements that need to be transferred electronically or even authorized by governments. So therefore, we as CBS provide a good tool, our e-invoicing world cloud. And with those words, I will hand over to Daniel to introduce AMA first, and then go into the how they manage globally the e-invoicing situation.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, AMA Sports. So the good thing is let me start like this. When Till asked me if I could talk a little bit about our collaboration for this whole e-invoicing topic, then I said for this group of people from Finland, but I think also from other countries in the Nordic region, probably the first time that AMA Sports as a company is also speaking to the people. People know AMA Sports and not only the brands. However, in the core, of course, of our operations are the products and the brands. So we have this list what you see here in front of you. So it's all about outdoor sports, winter sports, I would say fashion, so sporting goods fashion, if you can call it like this. We have Wilson, so ball sports, team sports, tennis, Roger Federer I have behind me also here. some of the people that we are sponsoring. Suunto, I guess, especially for everybody in Finland, is well aware of these kind of products. So this coming from diving equipment and moving now into this sports trackers and all that, or moving since the last years already, and developing there. And the last brand that was purchased by the group is Peak Performance, a Swedish company. I guess also pretty well known to this group here. Yeah, so AMA Sports as such is the owner of those brands. We are basically, the idea is that the operations of those brands globally are sharing the platform, like the technical platform, but also warehouses, logistics setup, so that the brands themselves appear on the market individually, so marketing-wise, product-wise, of course, but everything else in the background is really handled on this global level as part of the AMA Sports group. And yeah, I didn't mention it, but again, I guess for most people it's known, the headquarters of AMA Sports is in Helsinki. And yeah, I'm based in Munich, just by the way. Yeah, so much about the company. On the brands, and to give you a little bit insight about the numbers and the global setup we are having. So our main markets are Europe and North America. You see there 40% each, but also in Asia, especially China is of course for us also a focus market, and showed especially last year the biggest growth, obviously, with this whole situation. The focus is, or was in the past, more towards wholesale business. I would say 80-90% has been the wholesale business. But now we are moving more and more into direct-to-consumer world, retail business. So the idea is to open much more retail stores all over the world in the future. Yeah. Overall, around about 10,000 people globally. Also here, the majority of people is situated in Central Europe, headquartered in Finland, as I said, but also then in our sales organizations in almost all the countries, all the European countries. I think we talk about 23 countries that are set up in our SAP system in just in Europe, and then also countries like US, Canada, China, Japan, and all that. Yeah. The company was it was a public company until 2019, held on the Helsinki Stock Exchange, and in 2019, Anta Sports, a Chinese group or also a consortium of also other companies, took over, basically purchased all the shares, or at least 90% of the shares, took AMA Sports that time off the stock exchange. That's why you also see the net sales published only from 2018, the final result. Yeah, since then, the ownership is with Anta Group. So we see also there a slight shift. The CFO has changed last year. Also, the operations are changing a little bit more towards this whole idea that Anta is bringing. They are in China. They are huge in the retail business. I think they have around about 7,000 stores, and they want to bring this whole idea of being closer to the actual consumer. They want to bring this into the whole group, and it's what we see also in terms of management changes and all that. Yeah. So much about. Let's go into the topic. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, idea is to go a bit through our history. So Daniel and me, I think we started discussing and talking about this topic in 2018 with Hungary. We'll come to that in a second. So we have this, like history of countries coming up with these requirements, as Francisco was saying in the beginning, driven by legal authorities imposing regulations. And we have in the meantime quite a history of activities and countries, implementations, projects, legal changes, and so the main idea would be just to present what we did and which challenges we have had, let's say, or still have. yeah, so that's it basically. And it started in Spain, but without us, right, Daniel? So maybe you can.
Yeah, so not completely without CBS, because we were looking also into the CBS solution that time. Unfortunately, decided against it. We will talk about the details later. Yeah, but this was our first country where the broader idea of e-invoicing was implemented, and it's more a reporting, but a very detailed reporting, huge process impact. And yeah, we went that time with a very technical solution, so an EDI partner, which means that we have the whole solution built in-house. So of course we are basing the solution on the whatever SAP provides, which is all e-document framework and notes and all that what you can get, so the country solutions. But the development itself was done then in-house, and we use the EDI partner really just as the bridge between AMA Sports and the authorities in Spain. And that helps me to explain then later what is really the difference between this pure technical partner and having the whole workload in-house versus a full service solution that we see with CBS. And yeah, we decided after Spain, never again. still a little bit painful whatever happens in Spain, but for Hungary we moved then to your CBS solution. Yeah, that was in 2018. By the way, saying 2018, the Spanish solution SII was actually coming to life in 2017, but we were only able to deliver the first files, I think, April 2018. So almost a year later. I think there was a grace period. We were not outside the compliance, but took way too long. Yeah, and then Hungary was the next country on our list. For us, it's a smaller market, to be honest. We have just a branch office there. It's actually part of the AMA Sports Austria business. But the real-time reporting, how it's called there, is quite a factor. It's what we tended to underestimate is really the process impact of all this whole e-invoicing. So it's, as Franziska explained it already about what e-invoicing is. For many people also in our organization, e-invoicing could be also sending a PDF invoice, and we always tell them, nope, that's the past. So paper invoice / PDF invoice is exactly the same, and this is all history. E-invoicing is touching the process heavily, so we had to do a lot of adjustments in all countries, all the ones that are coming afterwards in the slide. But especially Hungary, where we have the challenge, is a small business. The responsibilities are not always that clear if you have not a focus market on the list. For us in the IT team, is then even more difficult to help defining the processes that lead then to be able to generate those, in the end, generate the files that you want to send to the authorities. And Hungary is quite strict. You have 24 hours after the invoice was issued. You have exactly 24 hours until the invoice has to be present at the authorities. And yeah, especially at the beginning, that's the challenge. Yeah, now it's up and running since 2 years, but was a huge pressure in the beginning. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And Hungary was the first one with really strict restrictions within Europe, at least, let's say, because the law is saying that the processing of invoices must be without any human interaction, meaning that really the law is imposing technical requirements. Yeah. So it must be implemented as an interface. Which was really new, let's say, and what you are saying, Daniel, that it's a small subsidiary. That's the issue, because technically it does not make any difference if it is 1 employee or 10,000, let's say. So this is making the projects in the end more complicated.
Yeah, and then 2019 was the year of some small adjustments in Spain on the road, but the real big project was and still is Italy. I have to say we are still in of course, by far after stabilization, but we are still implementing changes in our SAP that became, or let's say challenges that became transparent because of the e-invoicing. So the e-invoicing itself, we managed to deliver this or bring that to life almost in time. But even more than in Hungary, the actual process impact was dramatic, I would say. It was a long list of changes that we had to apply. Just for the ones that are not familiar with what Italy is requesting there. So each and every invoice that you want to send to your customers needs to go through the authorities portal or this SDI servers. So you have to submit the invoice information with everything inside, so header information, the line item information, tax information, of course, that's in the core, has to be in that format which the Italian authorities give you as a long list of even on the detail level of field definitions and format definitions. So it's long list. And we have to translate all our invoice information into, or not only invoice, also credit notes, debit notes, everything, to be translated into whatever the Italian authorities require to be able to deliver then this invoice to the customer. And the other way around also, it's also part of the solution, is that we are receiving the invoices from our vendors also through the same channel. Luckily, the setup is a bit lighter than on SAP side, but this for us, Italy is always the benchmark when we talk about upcoming projects. And we say, is it close to Italy? Because it cannot be worse. It can only be like Italy or a little bit lighter. But they really went full in, I would say. And for us, we also see that other countries are following their example. No?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and by the way, that is what you're saying. I mean, once such legislation and restrictions and validations are introduced, it is also uncovering things that were not done completely correctly in the past, because you know how it is in many countries. Maybe the invoices are printed and let's say you take a pen and change some data on it. So as a manual correction, whatever. So of course that is not possible if everything must be validated online by the tax authority. So normally also many issues are coming up, and yeah, processes and gaps are uncovered by these restrictions.
Yeah, and then some changes in between for Hungary came in, and this is also what I can highlight here. Once you have the solution in place, I can say for the user side or broader business side, usually it loses the focus, I would say. Okay, there's this big project, the implementation project, but whatever happens afterwards, the whole maintenance, the changes, the adjustments, that's a lot of workload for my team. And we always try to emphasize that even changes that look a bit smaller at the beginning, they might have, again, this huge process impact. And then we are happy that we can focus on these changes on SAP side. Okay, saying simple things like you need a new tax code, for instance. No, so whatever, it's a small change. But if you, until the moment that you detect that you need it, because whatever needs to be translated into whatever authorities want, to get there, to have this deep process understanding, that's the challenge. And then you don't want to focus too much on this part of the transmission of this, it's an XML in this case, to the authorities. That's where the CBS solution kicks in and takes a lot of workload, and also takes a lot of the adjustments from our shoulders, because we already deliver a bit more data to the CBS cloud than we need to report today, which means that if there are changing requirements, then the cloud team can just take this additional data and transfer it on top of what is already there. And sometimes we don't even realize that there are changes ongoing. Yeah, so and then 2020 was the year of the VAT ID checker. So for those who are not aware, if you are sending an invoice outside your own country, so cross-border transactions, then you have to ensure that the VAT ID of this partner is valid in the moment of goods delivery. Now and there's a lot of room for interpretation if you read it like this. And we were also struggling a bit to understand what it really means. Is it really in the moment that you actually send the goods from your warehouse, or what is it? Yeah. So these kind of definitions are behind there, but in the end, it's validating the validity and the correctness of the VAT or the ID of your partner. And also here we are going with the existing connectivity between our SAP system and the CBS cloud, and we use the package that was coming from SAP and CBS to make those checks, to have the audit log and all that, and also the checks inside inside SAP during the process. So for instance, when we're creating a customer account, then this solution is checking in that moment if the entered VAT ID is valid, and we also go there through then the CBS cloud. And then 2000, or I don't know, Till, if you want to add something, or we go to
It's fine.
To UK.
Yeah, UK is good. And
UK is the Making Tax Digital, so this MTD stands for Making Tax Digital. In the end, tax reporting, where UK authorities, or this HRMC, I always mix the numbers, the letters. They call that like the digital link. So whatever you are entering in your SAP or ERP system in general, this data cannot be manipulated until it arrives to the authorities. Manipulate in a way that you should not have any manual interventions from, let's say, from the transaction, the posting that happens in SAP, until the moment that this posting information is sent to the authorities. And also here we are building on this mix between whatever SAP brings as a standard solution. On top, we have a CBS solution also, so programs that CBS deliver to us in SAP, and then the link from our infrastructure through the CBS cloud to the authorities in the same way. Yeah.
okay. Thanks. I'm a bit concerned while looking at the time, so that's should be it, I guess. And yeah, you mentioned it. Legal changes is also a topic, and I think you see it also from this graphic that yeah, the period between two activities or actions that are needed is getting smaller and smaller as more countries are coming and new scenarios and so on. Good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, while looking at the time, maybe we can speed up a bit and let's say skip this one. Maybe you can just go through the animations, and we can, once everything is there, one more, because then this S4 thing also comes in. Yeah. Yeah, maybe just as a summary, I don't know, Daniel, if you want to say, I don't know, 1-2 sentences about the SAP landscape and maybe the road to S4. Is it possible in
one sentence? Yeah, easy. So we have one global system, one global ECC, and we are preparing our S4 system. And yeah, you see we have a PIPO in the middle, which means we don't have to change the setup. We just reconnect.
Okay.
But go ahead with this one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Good, thanks. So that was a bit the history, what we did so far. To explain a bit, because we were talking about what CBS was doing in these projects and what CBS Cloud is. I want to quickly provide an overview what it is technically, and also Here I would like to be quick, so maybe you can just go through all the animations and I will just summarize it. So what we are doing in this e-invoicing area is what we call one-stop compliance. So we are, let's say, offering the full full picture with all aspects we need. So not only the technical solution, which is here the top right piece, let's say, which is for sure necessary and really important to have some technical base that is doing all the technical steps that are needed, like sending invoices, doing data mapping, signatures, whatever. But that is only the technical part. And as important it is to handle the projects and do the governance and track legal changes and have everything in one hand to really deliver end-to-end projects and solutions. And that is always the idea what we are doing. So end-to-end solutions that are integrated in the SAP systems in a way that users have everything directly in SAP, no media breaks, no external UIs or processes, manual steps, whatever. Yeah, so it's the technical solution. We have the projects with our consulting business, let's say, tracking legal changes, doing organizations and governance and so on. Okay, yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. What does it mean technically? It is shown in this figure on the left-hand side. It's the SAP system, like the one from AMA Sports, where the data extract happens and the users are working with the e-invoicing processes. The technical base is the e-document framework from SAP. But then our CBS Cloud comes into place here, shown in the middle. And in CBS Cloud, we are doing the mapping, for example, and all the connectivity. So there's only this one interface needed between SAP and our CBS Cloud, and we are doing all the rest on the data formats, signatures, and connectivities to tax authorities, local partners, central banks, access points, whatever is needed for these scenarios. So it's really an end-to-end solution, meaning there's no interfaces, no iDocs in between, no, I don't know, web service calls to be configured. It's all in the standard solution. And the main idea is that we add all features and functionalities on the cloud side, which makes sense because it reduces the work for legal changes or adjustments. So the idea is to really minimize the impact we have on the SAP side, okay? The cloud is a managed cloud solution, meaning that it's really us who are maintaining it, who are updating it. So if legal changes happen, it's our team who is really doing everything. So one important thing, and that is what this slide is showing. So what is the difference to what we call EDI provider? And I know that in the Nordics or in Finland, this is quite usual to use these EDI providers for doing electronic invoicing or other EDI processes. So the difference is that with an EDI provider solution, it's really no end-to-end solution, as they can only cover the SAP outside steps, let's say. So they can do the tax authority connections and so on, but normally they have no knowledge in SAP, so there's no guidance. So what happens, let's say, if for the S4 project, what needs to be done? Yeah, so it's everything outside SAP only. And there's no SD and MFI integration. So you need custom interfaces, iDocs, for example, or Z reports to ensure that data is extracted from the system correctly in the format the EDI provider needs and which is aligned with them. Good. Yeah, that was the really quick version. Because yeah, this example is, I think we should take a minute to go through this example because I think it's quite interesting. It's something from the real life. There was this legal change in 2021, beginning of this year. And if you remember, Spain was the first country for AMA Sports, which was not implemented with CBS, but with an EDI solution connection, let's say. The change happened beginning of this year, as said, with a new VAT date to be reported. SAP published an OSS note, adding a new field for it in FI. Daniel, I would like to hand over to you once again to quickly explain what this was, how this was going in your existing solution, and then I would like to also quickly explain how it would have been with the CBS Cloud.
Well, I can make it very short because it's still going, which already tells you it's another pain for us. And, I mean, it says here new VAT date, so it's in theory one more field that you have to add. SAP also in theory delivers the notes to that this field actually exists first of all, and then you have to bring it through the programs and through the interface into the reports. So we had to touch again the whole logic, the whole EDI logic, the whole logic of the program in SAP. And yeah, we are not live yet. We are 3 months afterwards. There is a grace period again. We're not outside the compliance. But when I asked Till what a big project this was, and how did it go for CBS, you told me nothing happened basically for most customers.
Yeah.
It was very smooth, which was a bit like putting the finger again into the wound.
Yeah, exactly. The main reason for sure is that we are, as said, not focusing on a technical solution. So we are focusing on how it is going in SAP, so which fields are needed in SAP and FI. So we have all the experts to check that and validate it. And in the end, we can, based on the setup, do the change on CBS Cloud side, meaning there's no need to touch the ERP system of our customers. And for this particular solution or requirement for Spain, we added in fallback for the VAT date, meaning that even if the customers did not implement this OSS node or did any change, it also worked and is still working without any effort. Which is really nice, I think. All right.
Very good. And then also still looking at the time, since it's getting close to 1:15 already. Just a very quick slide also for Finland. So we know that from April 2020, it's actually mandatory, a legal requirement to send invoices if your customer requires an electronic invoice. And in Finland, as we can see here, there are many service providers which do provide services to send invoices electronically. There are two main formats that are used. That's the Finvoice and the TAPS XML. And all these service providers are enabled, they ensure that they can communicate with each other. So basically, as a supplier, you will pick your service provider, and the service provider will make sure that they can transfer your electronic invoice to the service provider the customer is using. So therefore, it's ensured that everyone can communicate with each other, and we as CBS will also be a service provider basically in Finland with our E-Invoicing World Cloud to hopefully make this legal requirement a bit easier for our customers. And with that, we would go into the question and answers. Is there anything in the chat? I cannot see anything, however.
There is one question, at least here in the question part. So, do you create images of invoice at any point, for example, to help posting and approval? So small approval. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So any images created?
Yeah, okay. So it depends a bit on the scenario, actually. You know, in some countries, it is like in Hungary, only in reporting of invoice data, same in Spain. So it is a report, so it's not related to any real invoices, and invoicing is done still by doing PDFs and so on. So the electronic invoicing, the legal aspects are not touching this question, let's say. But in other countries, we have it like in Italy, for example. In Italy, the tax authority introduced a central computer system, the SDI, and they said, okay, all invoices must go through this central platform in a defined XML format. And with this setup, of course, the question absolutely makes sense, because now we are communicating invoices as XMLs. But if the receiver has not it completely automated, or is processing the invoices with a computer, let's say, it makes sense to have something human readable. And that depends on the scenario. So in most scenarios we have it, and theoretically we would have to split it in incoming and outgoing invoices. So for these scenarios with incoming invoices, we have it, example, once again, Italy or Turkey, for example, where you receive also an XML format through the tax authorities, let's say. And what we are doing is to generate a human readable PDF, for example, and also save it in the SAP system to make the posting easier. And I think the question was going in that direction.
I don't know, do you have, Franz, any other questions in the chat? Maybe you can check it if they comes directly to you. But I have one.
Go ahead, Tanya. Yeah. Sorry, I don't see any other questions.
I have one question now as listening to this very interesting presentation. So if I would have a situation that I have a company and I don't have this e-invoicing process in place at all, and I would like to start using this CPS e-invoicing cloud. So what kind of project we are talking about? How long it take to set it up typically, and or if I have a already process in place for and using some EDI providers, so what it means to practice to us if we would like to change to CPS cloud service.
Yeah, okay, so so first is some technical steps, because CPS Cloud is connected through a VPN tunnel, so there must be some technical setup done, VPN tunnel, system connections, RC users, authorizations, and so on. So to set up really the basic communication, and for that one we plan 6 weeks normally. In some cases it took only a few days, but in other cases it was quite complex to get everything and everybody on board. That is the purely technical aspect, and then we have the project for sure. And that is something we should not underestimate, because it's really not only a technical issue. Technically, we can set up everything quite quick because it's a standard solution that can be implemented and shipped and activated. But we have this functional requirements. So we are doing these projects with a project team, talking to the business, doing business assessment and fit gap activities, creating a process list, really to know also from business and process perspective to what needs to be implemented. Yeah, and that is something that takes time depending on the scenario. So for Italy, it takes longer than, let's say, for the UK scenario. But to give something, at least normally we say 3 months for a medium complex invoicing scenario is a good time to not be too stressed in the end, let's say.
Yeah, but I guess it's not so bad if you think about big transition projects. So 3 months sounds quite feasible to comparing to that. Yeah.
Just to add maybe from my side to what Till said, and I stressed it out already, the process impact from this project is huge. And just if you start these projects, make sure you have all the people aware, you have all the people in the project that you need. So tax people, customer service people, finance, accounting, have them aware what's coming there, make sure you know your processes. And yeah, this is what I can recommend, because this is really the pain, not the technical side. That's one thing, but process is the thing that created a lot of headache for us.
Yeah. Daniel, what is next on your agenda? Do you also plan or need to look into e-invoicing for the Nordics countries? We didn't see any Nordics countries in the past yet.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Finnish e-invoicing is on our list. It's not yet planned as a project because of just a huge workload at the moment. But we do have, I checked this with our headquarters, we do have requirements from some customers that are asking now for this e-invoicing, and as you said, in theory, it's a mandatory thing now. If a customer wants, you have to deliver such an e-invoice. So we will implement it. The number of customers is still low, but it will increase. So Finland is on our list. And then besides that, other countries like Poland, France in 2023, Poland in 2022. So there's a long waiting list of countries that will implement these kind of requirements now.
So looks like you will stay busy with the project activities in the coming months and maybe a little bit longer as well.
Yep.
But hey, at that point, I don't think we have any more questions, and I think our time slot is more or less used. So I would like to really much thank you, Daniel. Thank you for joining us, and also Till and Franziska. And we are looking forward, Franziska, have you here in joining our CPS Finnish forces very soon. So lucky to have you here with us. So thank you, and we will have a, let's say, 1 minute break, and then we will continue with the next topic.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome, Morten, from our daughter company, Logistics. So you are today gonna tell about challenging of the status quo of supply chain management and the logistics. So that will be your topic. So we are very happy to hear what you are gonna present us. So stage is yours. Yep. So I will close here.
So I'll start, and my topic for today is, as you said, Tanya, thank you, challenging the status quo of the supply chain management and logistics. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. And what I will do today, can you please go to the next slide? Move to the next slide, Tanya.
Just seems to be a bit slow, but it doesn't show you now. I have it here, but it doesn't update to you at the moment. Let me check once more. So
yes, thank you. So what I'm going to do today, first of all, I'll give you a short introduction first to my company and then of myself. Then I will try to talk a little bit about this. Why should we actually challenge the as-is? And what does this move to S/4HANA actually mean to logistics? Then finally, I will go in and say I'll try to come up with some ideas of how you can make this move to S/4HANA more smooth by looking into two topics that is really affected or impacted by implementation of S/4HANA, and that is actually your operating models within logistics, and also the whole way you deal with your carriers, you do your freight costing, your agreements, and so on. And one thing I think is the best part of it, you could actually start doing that within your business without involving IT at all. So if you go to the next slide, Tanya.
And I will try to. Looks like it's really slow, so I'm not able to change it. Now it came. Okay, is it already next one?
It is the next one, yes, please.
Yeah.
So first about some words about logistics. I have about 130, 140 colleagues, mainly in Germany. In Germany, we have our headquarter in Hamburg, and then we have offices near Berlin, Leipzig, and Heidelberg. Logistics was founded in 2008 and has been focusing since it started on logistics only. You could say that CBS is more generally focusing on SAP topics in general, and logistics is part of CBS since 2014. And as logistics has been focusing on topics as transportation management and warehouse management only, we have also looked into the interface between warehouse and transportation. So therefore, topics as yard management and slot time management has really become a core competence of logistics. So that's also why we have helped companies as BASF, Evonik, IBM, sorry, not IBM, BMW, I meant, so within the automotive industry, to help optimizing the inbound and outbound flow of the factories. So these are, of course, companies that are operating huge yards where we really need to manage truck movements between the different gates and warehouses and so on, in order to get a really good utilization of your warehouse capacity, so your docks and so on. If you move to the next slide, Tanya.
But it's really...
Is it slow?
Yeah, I don't know. I need to press many times. Okay.
Okay. Within our portfolio of logistics, we have, you could say, 3 pillars to work on. One is the services, so the consultancy service, where we have consultancies being really experts within the EWM area, VM as well, and also in the SAP TM area. And also working with the SAP Yard, as I just mentioned, because Yard is really one of our really big focus areas. Besides that, we have software solutions ourselves. Some of them are built based on SAP technology, so you can actually quite quickly utilize those. Not as you can't say just plug and play, but near to some of them at least. Use them as part of your SAP solution. And then on the other side, we also have solutions, what we call cloud solutions, built on non-SAP technologies. So you could say that we make it actually possible for you to digitalize your end-to-end supply chain. If you go to the next slide, Tanya. A few words about myself. I'm 33 years old, 53 years old, sorry. I'm Danish, and I joined logistics 1st of January this year. Before that, I came from Arla Foods, where I also took the position as being the product owner for TM. I was part of a department called Global Logistic Development, where we looked into possibilities to optimize the supply chain for Arla Foods. And also part of my career at Arla Foods, I was part of an OPEX team where we traveled around in Sweden, in Denmark, of course, and then also in the UK, looking at dairies, trying to drive this best practice agenda, where I had responsibility of warehouse and distribution. I had some colleagues in the OPEX team who actually were in charge for process, maintenance, planning, and so on. So we actually covered the whole process from production, actually planning, production, and packaging, and then distribution, including warehouse. So my presentation today is actually based on my experience from Arla Foods, being this product owner for TM. And then before I joined Arla Foods, I was heading up the IT department of Andreas Andresen, which for many years now has been part of Kraftverkehr Nagel. It's a big forwarder in Germany, you might know him. Where I did some integration to, first of all, Arla Foods. It was really advanced integrations where Arla could send orders to us based on deliveries, of course. We created a forwarding order, you could say, planned it. We could send back loading plans for the dairy so they could see at 7 o'clock a truck number X will come and pick up delivery 1, 2, and 3 in that sequence. And again, at the end of the day, we, based on our planning, created a shipment so Arla Foods could do the shipment cost calculation and we could set the invoice by EDI. So everything was automated there to a large extent. We also did an integration to Danish Crown, Danone, and other companies. So that's actually part of my presentation today, to take in those learnings. And also very important here is that I had this role of being the key account manager responsible for some strategic freight customers and other foods. So setting up the agreement so you can actually use it by the system to do all the calculations of what should this particular freight actually cost and how should we invoice that automatically. Good. Thank you. Go to the next slide, please. So why should we actually challenge this status quo? And why do we actually need to change? If you go out there and you want to change something, you see so many, or you hear so many arguments from people around on the shop floor and up to the management that they have built those many good processes they are operating and use time, money, sweat and tears in building up those brilliant processes. So why should they actually change it? They are happy about it, so they really defend them, and they are known processes by the employees, so why should they actually change, use more time to do the change? Maybe the system landscape is too big and too complex and will take years to change it. And some also argue that they actually see that they have really simple processes that are maybe manual, but they are not worth it to automate. So what is it actually that takes us to drive this change? You could of course argue that you have been changing in the past, or adopting in the past, due to market requirements, due to whatever requirement is facing you, legal requirements that you need to look into and adopt to. And if we look into the future, we'll see a lot of forces that will actually continue to drive this change. New technologies are coming up, API, giving us the opportunity to look into many different technology, so we can pick from the shelf and use maybe a best of breed strategy. We will see increased use of AI as artificial intelligence, robotics, that will help us improve our processes. We will also see an increased this IoT, Internet of Things, where we have items communicating to each other, generating a huge amount of data that will allow us to be much, much better in predicting future demands if we are able to handle those information in the right way. So this is of course also the third point here, that the big data will become even bigger. Then lack of agility in meeting new market requirements is also a thing that can actually drive the change. If we look at big customers, maybe have set up some sort of services for a customer in one market, and they are not able to put in those services in another market for the same customer. Many customers are getting global. If you look at the retailers, so Walmart, Tesco, and so on, they are operating in many markets. So you need to be able to fulfill the same requirements if you deliver to a Tesco in the UK as if you deliver to a Tesco in Finland or in Sweden or in Denmark. So so this is also a very important thing. Last but not least, I would say that congestion on the road is not getting smaller. So this, compared to the fact that the customers will require faster and or frequent demands all the time, the congestion is something that is actually trying to pull us in the other hand. So what can we actually do? The only thing we can do is trying to speed up the flow of information, so we can pick even faster and so on, and get the stuff out and running as fast as possible. One thing I should also mention here is actually what this pandemic has done. For instance, if you see the increased amount of home deliveries that is, at least here in Denmark, has taken place, where people are now buying the groceries at a website, and what that has meant to the whole logistics setup, where you are going with a small truck and deliver to the private customer at their doorsteps. So huge changes are coming up. And if you go to the next slide, Tanya, you will actually see here that S/4HANA is also one of the big changes. In an ordinary setup, in the old R3 setup, we actually see that we have this sales order, we create a delivery, we use the shipment to bundle the deliveries. Often we use the shipments as the object that we communicate to the warehouses, or we use this shipment for cost calculation. So we create the shipment cost document based on that one. So we create the purchase order, we can use that to match our incoming invoices and have the whole compliant process up and running there. If you click the slide, this is a small animation, Tanya, so please, one point here. If you look in the new setup of S/4HANA, we will see that the shipment and the shipment cost document is actually going to be obsolete. And these are, of course, impacting, for instance, the warehouse interfaces, the way we do all the freight costs, and so on. So we need to redo all these setups. What we are getting with S/4HANA in the full scope, where we need to use TM, we use the freight units and the freight order and the freight settlement documents as new objects. And the flow will be that we either based on sales orders or deliveries can create those freight units, which we then can plan on a freight order, use the freight order for calculations, for instance, maybe also these two objects on how we communicate to the warehouse. And then at the end of the day, we'll use the freight order to create this freight settlement document, calculate what are the expected costs, or maybe use that for creating a credit note towards the supplier, whatever. But at the end of the day, in ECC, this freight settlement document will be used to create a purchase order. So if we are now taking those two elements away, what does that actually mean? That means that we can, and many companies will be forced to redesign the interface to collaboration partners, could be forwarders, could be warehouse operators, whatever, to their own warehouses, of course, the process they use to do all the freight cost calculation, the processes for invoice approval, and also all the models for how they can distribute freight costs back to the customers again. Yes. If you go to the next slide, Tanya. So when we now have to do so big changes, then I think it could be worthwhile to get the best out of it. And in order to get the best out of it, we should actually set up some objectives so we know exactly what we can, what we want to improve, and how and why we want to do this journey. As you might remember, there will be a lot of resistance in many companies to do all those changes. So we should actually set up some targets so we can use this storyline to tell our people, our employees, and so on, why we should do this change. And if you actually set up some objectives, and I think I've set up 4 objectives here, which I think could be very common for many companies. One could be to increase the transparency. Another one could be to increase agility. And a third one could be to improve customer service. And then, at least but not last, increase automation. And what does that actually mean? Increased transparency. That means that we know exactly how many dollars or euros or whatever it takes to deliver a certain product to a certain customer. So we could use that in our sales departments when we do negotiations with our customers dealing with prices and so on. It's also very important for us to know something about OTIF. So how is our performance towards customer A versus customer B and so on? It's also very important information when we go into negotiations with our customers. Agility was this about how fast can we meet new requirements? And the more set coding we are putting into our solutions, the more not agile we will be. Then improving customer service. So really working with the standardization will enable us to deliver the same sort of service towards the same customer, whether that customer is sitting in Finland or in the UK. And then, of course, increased in automation, that could be about being, first of all, compliant with the way we handle invoice. We just saw the previous presentation dealing with that issue. But we also want to automate the whole invoice approval process. We also want to automate the whole reporting process. Many companies actually have a BI solution, but because some processes are very special, they need to do some additional work. They just can't push the button in order to create the management report every month. They need to do it manually. And that is, of course, slowing down the time from when things happened until the management report is finished. And then besides, we are using a lot of time and effort in generating those reports. Could be something that we want to improve in our journey here. So what is it actually that we can do from a business point of view? We can decide to go with the steep path. That means we take all the processes we have today and try to put them into the new solution. That would mean a lot of set coding. That would mean a lot of non-standardized work. Or we could try to go with the happy path and say we go with the standardization and try to slim down the old obsolete processes we have. But before we can do that, there are some obstacles that are actually to be teared down first. And two of these obstacles are, in many cases, what I've seen, the operating model I talked about. We'll go into that detail now. And then also the structures of our freight agreements. So if you go to the next slide, Tanya. One thing that we need to understand first, it could be very easy for many people to say, in logistics, you just have to move some products from A to B. So how hard can that be? But depending on how we set it up, you could actually see here, the first question you have to ask yourself is, who is actually doing the transport planning? Because if you go with the other way, then we will say we have a delivery, we put that to a forwarder, and at the end of the day, that forwarder would send us one invoice for a drop. In the upper path, we'll get 3 invoices, each for 1 drop for customer A, B, and C and D. So yeah, could be in D also. But if we go and say we do the planning, either by using our own drop or after with the planning using a haulier. There's a big difference between a forwarder and a haulier. A haulier will just do the trip you have planned, and at the end of the day, he will send you 1 invoice. And we need to put all that information, because the processes will generate all that information of data that we need to use when we do our reporting. And one of these reports could be cost per kilo. And if we then have 1 invoice for complete truck serving various number of customers, then we first have to distribute the costs. If we use the first model, where the forwarder will send us 1 invoice per drop, then we already have this distribution, of course, among the different customers that was included in that shipment or in that trip. And maybe if we are even using our own truck, there might be no internal invoice. So how do we actually fill in and create the data will actually depend on the way we have set up these operating models. And then, of course, also with different ways here again, we operate, that really gives us some different flows of information when it comes to OTIF and OTIF measures. Are we actually on time? And how can we get information from forwarders, from hauliers, and from trucks? And the more broad this number of suppliers we use, the more complex the picture gets. Go to the next slide, Tanya. So this is a way to see it. Because remember, when we want to have an end-to-end supply chain where we have the forwarders, we need to communicate back to the warehouse. When should a truck load, depending on the planning done by the forwarder, we will actually have a lot of different scenarios of how we should communicate to the different partners we have in our supply chain. If we look at scenario 1 here, we have a third party that is taking care for the transportation planning, but that is then the same party that is then responsible for the warehouse operation. So in that one, we could actually say, you have a delivery, please plan it, and then you internally communicate how you want to get the different things loaded. So we are out of it. If we take scenario 2, where we have one partner taking care of the transportation planning, but another one taking care of the warehouse, then we suddenly are in the middle. And we need to send the delivery first for planning at the by the third-party transportation service provider, and then he needs to send back to us how he wants the truck loaded, so we can send it to the warehouse, they can do all the picking and so on. So it's very, very complicated. And we could extend that, then we have our own warehouses. We could have a third-party warehouse, but our own planning with external carriers, and then we could have a scenario where we have everything inside in our own within our own solution. But these different scenarios have a huge impact on how we want to set up this integration. And if we want to set up an integration in order to speed up the information flow, because the congestion is increasing, and at the same time the customer requirements for more frequent and faster deliveries is expanding, then we really need to take care of how complex we set up this. If you go to the next slide, Tanya. Just remember, because you need to really think about how we gather all that information, you need to understand also how a setup in the transportation world is actually look like. So if we want to have something about our warehouse, so the warehouse needs the information when delivery needs to be picked, so it can be loaded on a truck. That depends on the planning of the pre-carriage. A truck is coming in, maybe picking up stuff to a lot of different areas. For instance, in Germany, if you take that as an example, so you go to a warehouse in Düsseldorf, and then this truck is picking up goods for delivery in Munich, but also in Berlin, for instance. Then that truck will normally go to a cross-docking site, well, it will split again. And there you'll have the planning of the main carriage, where you could actually, based on the main carriage, could say, when is actually the expected delivery time at the customer. It's also normally the main carriage that is used for the invoicing process and not the pre-carriage. So this setup, you really have to take into your consideration when you do your S/4HANA implementation. If you go to the next slide. So this is two typical flows you could set up in an integrated setup. The first one is actually looking into the scenario 1 I just presented before, where we had one provider for warehouse and for transport planning. The other one is where you have two different parties, one for warehouse and one for transportation. Tanya, if you click on chart 1, you'll zoom in. Just click it. Yes, thank you. So this is actually how a complex setup could be, where you have an outbound delivery, creating the freight unit in TM. Based on that, you can set that freight unit to the warehouse for picking as a picking request. The third-party warehouse provider would then create what you call a warehouse booking, picking instruction. Based on that, he can also do a transport request, sending that to his own transport planning department. They would then plan the picking, sending that back to the warehouse. And so as a loading plan, so the warehouse knows exactly in what sequence and when to have this picking, this delivery ready for loading. And Besides that, the third party will also plan for the delivery. One plan is the pre-carriage, as we just saw. He will set that to the warehouse, and then he will also create a transport planning for the main carriage. He can then send that transport planning for the main carriage up to us, and based on that, in TM, we can create a freight order where we'll bundle all those deliveries that he has planned. And the third party will then start picking. He will release it. He will send us a status message and say, don't change anything. We are now starting picking. We will update our freight units, our deliveries, so no blocks can be done anymore. He will then, after picking has been done, everything is loaded on the truck. He will send us a goods issue as a dispatcher's wise. We'll update with actuals. That can then update the deliveries, and we can trigger also in TM a new calculation of the expected freight, so we can create a purchase order. After delivery, or when the delivery has taken place on to the customer, the forwarder will send us a new status message and say, now it was delivered, so we have the OTD message. We can start measuring our OTIF. And at the end of the day, he will do his settlement and send us an invoice with the reference to the purchase order that he has created. This is one interface, and just look here on the number of interfaces we have set up here. We are counting 5. If you click again, Tanya, to zoom out, yes, and then click on the other one. Here you see we start being the middleman between the two parties. So first of all, we need to send the freight unit to our partners responsible for the transport planning. He needs to create a plan that we then can create in TM, so making a freight order for the pre-carriage, so we can send that back to the warehouse and so forth. And the point is actually here that the number of interfaces is increasing. It's getting more complex. And the whole point here is also that we must challenge the way we actually do, because if we have many of these different ways of working, it will be a huge work for us to set up these different integrations in case we have this objective that we want to measure OTIF, we want to automate our invoice approval process, we want to be totally sure of how are our costs and performance towards each customer. You can go to the next slide, so just zoom and then click in the button. Yes. So this was about the operating model and how this impacts the integration we need to do to our partners if we want to achieve those objectives I talked about. Another thing that is very important is the way we set up freight agreements. If you zoom on this, you can click on the chart, yes. There are many ways. I just mentioned, say, there are stop-based agreements. So we pay per stop we deliver. But we have often an order-to-cash process where we have many deliveries to one physical drop, 2 pallets, 5 pallets. We don't want to pay 2 pallets and 5 pallet rates. We want to pay 1 times 7 pallets. And the way we actually do that, we can either pay by pallet, we can pay by weight, we can pay by loading meters and whatever. And then when we do our agreements with carriers, we set it up, say, by a zone defined by postal code. Or some just say to Berlin. But what is Berlin? When is the area within Berlin? A system don't know that if we haven't specified that from the beginning with our carriers. The same goes for tour-based prices, where you have you get an invoice for a whole tour. You have planned it. You ask a forwarder to drive from A to B, from B to C, and from C to D. And then at the end of the day, he sends us that invoice. Maybe this agreement is based on hours. It could also be a fixed tour price. Seen some agreements made where they have set up a tour defined by a location going from A to B, and then from B to C. And the price was then based on the farthest away destination. But what happens when the planning is done in such a way that you have to go first to the farthest away destination and then back to another destination nearby, because the delivery times is different. Then the system will have a hard time to find out that it actually had to pay 200 instead of only 150. That was the price of the latest destination. So there are so many parameters that are used out there. It could be tail lift, it could be oil surcharge, whatever, that you need to take into account, and you need to standardize. Because if the picture here is too broad, you will have a huge struggle in getting that into your system. Yes, you can click again, Tanya. Yeah, yes. So at the end here of the day here, I have now put two ways of how you could actually try to smoothen this mountain you have to climb when you're going for this S/4HANA. Of course, I've set up this 4 objectives in the beginning. So agile and yeah, what did I actually say? Sorry. Yeah, increase transparency, agile, improves customer service, and automation. You might have other objectives, but I'm sure if one of these objectives I've just mentioned are some of yours, your objectives as part of your SAP implementation, looking into those areas I've just mentioned will for sure make your path more smooth if you manage to deal with this upfront before you start the implementation. So I think that was actually the words from me, and I have one point here, but that I actually didn't mention, and that is governance. So really having the governance of master data, I think it was one of the previous presentations where that was said master data is key, and I totally agree to that. So really making sure that governance is part of it is also a very, very other important aspect. Yes, Tanya, that was everything from me.
Thank you, Morten. So that was a really interesting presentation here about all these different operation models and what is the path for S/4HANA. So let me see, I didn't have time to follow up if there are any questions there in the chat, or meanwhile I was following the presentation. Looks like there is not questions at the moment, but as we are now more or less running out of time, so I want to thank you, Morten, and if anybody have questions, I'm sure you can be contacted directly, right? So get in touch with this topic. So that's a good way to go forward. So thank you, Morten, to join us today, and now it's time for the small break, 30 minutes break, and we will continue with the next presentation at 1 o'clock Finnish time. And the chat will be open here, and if you want to talk, just raise the hand. We can open the microphone as well. So let's have a lunch break and then come back at 1 o'clock. And then we have a next topic from the Wärtsilä, and they are telling about the road to S/4HANA as well. So interesting topic starting at 1 o'clock. Do you want to, Nina, say something?
Yeah, Tanya and myself, we will be stay here online during the lunch break. So we are here waiting for your questions. Feel free to get them anytime.
Yes.
Use this opportunity.
Thank you. See you at 1 o'clock at the latest then. Thank you, Morten. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, hey, welcome, Thea and Laura, and stage is yours. We are happy to hear about your presentation, Wärtsilä's way towards to S/4HANA. So let's get started.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello and greetings from Vaasa. So my name is Thea Haavisto. I'm Director for Business Productivity Services here in Information Management at Wärtsilä. And this is my 29th year with the company, and enjoying a lot with the constant challenges and new opportunities what we have. And I have a stronger background in the Salesforce, but I'm also leading this ERP team, so that is why I've been involved in this HANA journey, so how we call it for now more than 4 years. But please, Laura, introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Laura Annevaara and I'm program manager also in our information management organization. And I don't have as long background in Wärtsilä as Tea has. So I have been working in Wärtsilä for 4 years, really interesting 4 years, but I have the project management background for quite much longer. So working as a project management area approximately 15 years or even a little bit more. But I have been running quite much SAP project during my project management career, but also something else. And in Wärtsilä, I also, for some reason, quite soon found myself in the SAP projects and working with Tea's team. So it has been really interesting these 4 years in Wärtsilä. But maybe we will be getting started with our presentation. So Tea will be starting.
Yes, it takes a while when it's changing for me. But we have one slide of our company. So Wärtsilä is a global leader in the smart technologies and complete life cycle solutions for marine and energy markets. And we have founded in 1834. So we are quite old company nowadays. And we have our personnel in 2020 figures are here. What you are seeing, it was 17,800, and we have 139 nationalities, and we are operating in 200 locations. Our net sales last year was 4.6 billion euros. So here are some figures that will put you on the kind of like a map where we are. In Finland, we have the main locations are Vaasa and Helsinki in order of the number of the employees, and then we have also location in office in Turku at the moment. Let's, Laura, move to the next one. It's exciting when it's changing so slowly, but yeah. So certainly companies have their strategies, but some years back, I would say 2016, 17, also we needed to start our, so to say, ERP strategy thinking, because S/4HANA was coming. There were a lot of things that we needed to improve in our organization, and also we needed to improve our way of working towards our business colleagues and stakeholders. So I start from the bottom. So actually we put all these well-working and non-working activities on the table and started to figure out that what are the things that we are aiming with this S/4HANA journey also, and what are the related things that we need to do and change along. So the lowest one, we have this SAP Extended Enterprise, that it should be lean, learning, and transparent. And also we changed and thought that how we are organized towards the services, what we are providing, also towards our business colleagues. How we are developing things and with whom we are developing. So we also went through the partners and the existing setup what we had. We needed to make the training plans for our people, that how we grow the competence for the people, and how we are kind of like prepared for this coming journey. We also have taken in our company this service design methodology into use, and that is something that we will and are using in the areas and we will use in the S/4HANA program. SAP platform is an enabler in the connected ecosystem. So world-class connectivity in smart marine and energy business. So we always need to think that why we are doing these ERP changes and improvements. So we are doing this for our business and our business operations, so to say. smart integration of external knowledge areas. So how do we integrate and how the data is flowing, and also considering the other systems what we have, and how do we provide the data availability in our company. Also touching this area, but also the next one is that we need to simplify the architecture, and S4HANA is providing that. But also last year we've been improving our EA architecture, and we are talking about adaptive architecture, that how we can more easily do changes in our, so to say, solution and platform landscape. Then what SAP is also talking is this intelligent ERP, how that is guiding our user actions based on data insights. And we have taken this Fiori approach also, and already we have quite many Fiori apps in use in our existing ECC. We are talking about personas and personalized user interface, and we are taking this user approach heavily into account during our activities, projects, and developments. Analytics and AI is embedded, and this is something that we've been trying to market also, and how we could get real-time data and probably minimize or even have less these additional reports that people and users could use information directly from the system. And all these are leading and should be kind of like focusing for this business value creation, that our company could accelerate operations via this S4HANA, how we can bring these new capabilities that our business is transforming constantly. And also there is a high demand that what we need to do. And then also this co-innovation culture, that constantly we need to do more together with our business colleagues, that it's not business or IM, or it's one dream team, how we call it nowadays, that we can do together these things, that we can grow opportunities. Then you can, Laura, move to next slide. Yes, and why Laura and myself are here in the CPS happening, so to say. So last autumn we have we're in the situation that we have a challenge that our company has changed. We have had a kind of like a new business have been divided into different setup, and those changes were not done into SAP. So our challenge was that the new organization model is not reflecting, or SAP is not reflecting how we are working today. And then we needed to implement this new finance and performance management. So we started the cooperation together with the CBS, and had this kind of like at the same time of the assessment, this target state benchmarking. And you can see on the bottom that we've been using SAP since 2004, so almost 20 years. And if I remember correctly, Wärtsilä Finland was the first, one of the first companies taking SAP into use. We have 3,500 monthly active users, and we are almost in 100 countries. But we are lucky that we have only one SAP, and we have quite good and harmonized processes and landscape at the moment, and also that comparable to other enterprises in the same area, they might have a lot of these multiple legacy systems, and in a way that is not our challenge as such. And many items are already in a target picture stage also, so to say, carved in stone. So this is the kind of like outcome of the benchmarking and the activities, and like mentioned here, so we are now focusing on this organization model implementation for the existing ECC. Then Laura, you can go to the next one. And here is a little bit of the journey I already touched in the previous slide, that how we put things onto a table and started build this journey for this company. So we did this strategy definition, and we were doing some interviews also, and our own people and business stakeholders. We moved to SAP to HANA database in 2018, and Laura was running that project also. So I think we started in Q1 and went live in October same year. Then 2019 we started with this impact analysis for SAP S4HANA. So where we kind of like check that what is the as is situation, and what will be the scope, where we have the pain points and where we have the opportunities also. So that was a huge activity, a lot of workshops together with our business colleagues. Then last year, 2020, we luckily did this customer vendor integration project. So that can be done during the, so to say, go live, S4HANA go live also, but at least, to be honest, that it was not that straightforward that we thought at the beginning, but now we have that in place, and have one less moving part, so to say, when we go further. And then we also have 2 extended warehouse management projects or implementations ongoing at the moment. And like said earlier, so the focus for this year, one of the biggest one is this organizational changes into ECC and data cleanup at the same time related to that one. So this is a lot of other smaller things have been done along, and a lot of other business projects. So this is not has been the only SAP, so to say, activities, but these have been the things that we've been working towards the S4HANA implementation day one, so to say. But Laura, you can continue from here since you have been the project manager or program manager, so please.
Yes, so I will be telling you a little bit. So as said, I have been program manager for this initial phase in this S4HANA. And so I will be telling you what has been also done, and a little bit what has been plans and building on top of what there has been telling. But here first mentioning that we have been planning our S4HANA then to be done in 2 phases. So in the first phase, concentrating on the mandatory items as well as taking the advantage on the compatibility items, and then in the phase 2, implementing the rest of the mandatory items plus then innovation. But I will be telling about that little bit later more, and let's go to the next slide. So telling you a little bit on the key targets that we have had in the program, and this has been also done then as part of our business impact analysis, and also based on the strategy work that Tea was then also saying. So Wärtsilä will be doing the selective data transformation, so that is our approach, and because of that we are thinking that our project is more than just an upgrade project. So even though we are certainly trying to also minimize the scope for phase 1, but we are also looking forward to have this clean and lean core in the phase 1, and when it's applicable, we are looking that if we could then implement the standard S4 solutions instead of our custom-made solutions. So that is definitely something that we will be doing as part of our phase 1. And as mentioned, Wärtsilä has been utilizing this one SAP almost 20 years for now. So you can imagine that Wärtsilä as a company, it has been changing a lot, and also the environment where we are working has been changing a lot during this time. So definitely we need to also leave some history data behind, and that's why this selective data transformation is really crucial to us. But as mentioned, we also need to look on our custom development and try to clean all the things that we are able then in as part of our project. And as the world is changing, and as we have been last year especially noticing that the things can change really rapidly, we want to also give our business users to most up-to-date data available. So instead of searching the data through the transactions, so we want to provide a proactive platform for them that would be then highlighting the issues where the user need to act. So definitely we are willing to take in use these analytics that S4HANA is providing and take the advantage on that. And also definitely we need to respond to this business demand, and as also Thea was mentioning on this adaptive architecture, we need to be ready to respond to that one, and then trying to keep our core clean, but then take the advantage on these solutions, for example, into the cloud. And the differentiation should be then done by this layered architecture. And also we want to then implement this citizen developer concept and empower people to do certain changes that affect their everyday way of work. Then let's go a little bit more in details our plans, how we have been planning to do this S4HANA, and our reasoning for phasing. And to begin with, I would like to tell you what the phasing is meaning for Wärtsilä when talking about the S4HANA. We will be having one big bang go live because we have so many intercompany processes, so we are not able to do this country by country implementation for our S4HANA, but we need to go live in one go. But then we are planning to do this S4HANA capability implementation then in phases, and that's why we are looking to minimize, for example, the scope for phase one, because we know that we need to do this big bang go live with so many company codes. So we need to then, and it's really a must for us that we are looking for the phasing opportunities so elsewhere. So meaning to take those capabilities in use one by one, and also taking the advantage on the compatibility pack items. And first of all, as already mentioned, so as part of the business impact analysis and already before, we were defining this S4HANA target architecture. So we had workshops with many business people. So we have been counting that we had something like 400 participants in our business impact analysis workshops, not in the one workshop, but all together from business. And of course, we had also quite a few people from IM to participate on that. And we were looking through these S4HANA items, and of course, certainly part of those are mandatory. But when we also look through the opportunity items and check whether those are relevant for Wärtsilä, and then created the roadmap for those items that are relevant. So mainly taking those opportunity items to the phase two, but anyway, certain things will be done also in the first phase. And then, as said, we will be doing this ECC transformation and new business model implementation still before we are starting our S4HANA, but at the same time we are preparing for S4HANA. And in the ECC transformation, we have also good opportunity to create and test our key user concept and implement that one to smaller pilot group, and then we can continue from that one when we are going to the next phase of our program, so implementation of S/4HANA. And then in the first phase, we will be having limited innovations. We will have mainly the innovation items in the finance area, because that's the area we have been working longest with, looking on that. And then our target also for phase 1 is really the clean core and trying to take this customization out of our core. And with this implementation of the key user concept, we were also building up the chains. And then in the phase 2 of our program, we will be implementing those mandatory items that are left from phase 1, so meaning those compatibility pack items. One example is this S/4HANA service that is important for us, and but we have left that to the phase 2. And then we are also then implementing the innovation items or optional items that we have been seeing relevant. And then only after this phase 2, we will be then getting the full business benefit out of the S/4HANA. But of course, we are targeting to then have also a lot benefit already in the phase 1. And then this phase 1 go live will be big bang go live, but then in the phase 2, we are trying to then also divide the go lives, as we have then separate topics into the phase 2. And definitely these all phases are linked to each other, and we are as originally the target architecture was then created then in the business impact analysis phase, but we need to review that when we are starting the phase 1 and review that whether we are still thinking that the same optional items are important to us than we originally thought. And then of course, once again, when starting the phase 2, the same review must be done, and if it needed also in the middle. But then how we are then planning to do this? So change management, it's the enabler of the whole journey of S/4HANA for us. And we are really thinking that the people should be in focus. And I'm actually happy to see the connection from the other presentations also in this, as Jani from Oriola at least also mentioned the items that are also important to us. So we have been thinking our organizational capability to change, and we are thinking that we shouldn't be doing too many changes at one go, and that's why we have been breaking our journey into the pieces. So implementing the smaller digestible pieces one by one when talking about the whole transformation to S/4HANA. Then we must also rethink the way of learning and training as part of the S/4HANA. So we think that the PowerPoint trainings are not anymore this day, and we need to give something more to the users, and users need to have the information available whenever they are needing it. So we are planning to implement the learning platform, and also, as we have the one big bang go live, this learning platform will be supporting us in that way, as there will be many users needing the information at the same time, so they are able to find it from one centralized place. And of course, our key user network then will be a great and important support when going live, but definitely there must be also one place where to find all the information. And we also want to provide great user experience to our users, and with Fiori user UI. And this Fiori UI will be actually also supporting training, as it will be more intuitive UX than our current SAP GUI. And we are planning to implement this Fiori Launchpad already in the first go live, even though we are not implementing all of those Fiori roles at the first go live, but just take the Fiori Launchpad in use as one access point. And we will be then implementing Fiori for certain selected roles in the first go live, but then after that one continuously doing the Fiori implementation. And as already Tea mentioned, so the service design methodologies start to be built in our project. So we are definitely taking the advantage on that and utilizing that when for example, planning these Fiori implementations and looking it from the user perspective. One really important thing is also this renewal of the key user concept as a part of the program. So we have key users in place at the moment also, but definitely it needs the concept needs sharpening, and we need to look more in details and put really the focus to this key user concept. And as also in a certain part of the organization, it's better in place, and in the other ones, if there has been, for example, many changes, it might not be that well anyway in place. This is definitely one of the most important thing also, as key users will be definitely playing a role when we are going live, so and also before in the program. So they are acting as a change agents, and they are providing the information to all of the SAP community. But then I will let Tea to wrap up our presentation.
Yes, in a way, summary, and Laura already nicely put together this people perspective. So this ECC transformation is heavily in the planning at the moment, but then also the things that we've been doing already, we are continuing. So if I mention here, so the data cleaning, both master data and transactional data, so that we can boost and do constantly. We've been putting a lot of effort and are in the good shape of this cloudification of SAP area. So that is also well in a grip, so to say, and we just need to adjust the plans with the other activities. This adaptive architecture, what I mentioned, so we need to also think more about that one, and agree that what will be in SAP in the future, what will be in other main platforms, what we have, and so on. So there we have a work still to be done. These user journeys and personas, so those we will continue to do as is, where we are, so it's easier for us in the later stage. And also this role design concept is something that the authorizations that we have focused and have had already. And then not the least, but this change management and also this, so to say, transformation activities that also we need to boost and market these SAP capabilities and S4HANA capabilities for the whole organization with the different messages. So those things are happening, and these are taking forward along this year, as well as this ECC has the focus. And like Laura said, that also I think that these lot of things we have had in place, or we've been doing, like these data cleaning activities and so, but these kind of programs are also nicely boosting these activities like key user concept. So I think that we have had it many years, but we need to do something to improve it and maybe to modernize it a bit. And then also what comes to the resourcing and this competence development, what I mentioned at the beginning, so we have new roles also in the team. So we have people who have been looking this UX, and then also of this key user concept level learning platform, and different type of kind of like additional capabilities and competencies we have been able to add into the team, which is nice. But that was our presentation today, so thanks for the ones who were online today.
Thank you, Laura and Thea. Very interesting to hear about your plans at Wärtsilä. There is actually one question in the sent, and I can read it here. So there's a question: what is the time schedule of the where it go? The box. Time schedule of Wärtsilä's S4HANA migration. That kind of question raised by the audience. So if you want to answer
Yeah,
that.
I knew that it's coming because I noticed that Laura didn't have any years in the schedule. But I've said that this year we are focusing this ECC transformation, and at the moment we have the plan to start this at the end of this year, beginning of next year. The actual, or not, I wouldn't say that to start, but we are doing the constantly under the program activities. But I would say that execution phase or planning phase actively. So then in the beginning of next year. That is the plan at the moment.
How about, it was really nice to hear that looks like that you have a quite good starting situation. You have only one SAP and you have a long experience and knowledge in the company, and looks like the process are in a good shape. So what have you seen most challenging to planning this, let's say, roadmap for the S4HANA? I was asking that also from Jani in the morning as he was telling the Silvits from the Oriola point of view what they are doing. So what have you thinking, and is there something tips to give somebody who is working on these same topics at the moment, what you have learned now during the
I wasn't part of the morning session, but I found my probably 3 years old notes. So then it was stated by the steering committee of this program that stop the development immediately for the existing system. So I think that there are a lot of moving parts. Business is changing. We need to support their demands also. So kind of like this schedule and timing and what we need to do, because we are now building, for example, this smart technology hub here in Vaasa. So very big, factory facilities and all the solutions into this one. So these kind of things are coming, and so we need to also adjust and communicate and negotiate with the other stakeholders. So, and then I think that this marketing and this change management, that how to bring this awareness and get people excited. So that is important and quite challenging, I would say, because many people have their own priorities and work. So how to get their attention? I don't know, Laura, please add.
Yes, at least something just to have the agile mindset also, that this is a big thing, and definitely it requires also the time to plan it, and then as Thea was also saying, that then there might be changes, and we need to then adapt accordingly and do whatever we need to do. So that's at least my opinion. One thing.
Yes, I'm just checking that. Is there any other questions sent to you? Oh, now it's a good time to ask questions. There is still time, so if somebody wants to send it or raise hands, so feel free. And maybe Laura, you can also check from the chat if nothing comes directly to you. That could be also happened. Maybe.
Yes, I was at least I don't see anything for me. Yes.
Oh, there is maybe one other questions. Let me see. Then there's a question: how do you see the different selective data migration solutions like CBS, SNB? Yes, that's kind of question. It's so small that the question box to read. So how you see the different selective data migration solutions like CBS, SNB, DataWard, and
I think the question is about the CBS data migration solution compared to the one from SMP and the one from our competitor state DataWard. So I don't know if you have done a comparison.
We have done.
You want to tell about?
Yeah. Please, Laura.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, naturally we have been also looking on these different options, but in this is my opinion, but I would say that anyway these are pretty in a way pretty similar, that the capabilities are quite much the same, at least based on what we have been then investigating. So maybe I wouldn't see then a big difference then between these. So that's at least my opinion based on the discussions that we have been having.
Yeah, maybe also a comment from my side, Nina speaking. The tool itself more or less is the same. So we are doing direct table updates in the SAP system. So this is more or less comparable. But what the different kind of companies are delivering in addition to this is different between the three mentioned here below. Yeah.
I think that was all our questions in the chat at the moment. So thank you, Laura and Thea, for this interesting presentation. I'm sure that all the audience is happy to hear about it. And now we have time for the 5 minutes break when we start with our last presentation, and our colleague Lawrence is joining from US. So I'd like to invite our colleague from US to join us. Lawrence Trefke, are you online with us?
I am online. Good afternoon to Finland. Hello, good morning from Philadelphia. How are you doing?
Good morning for you. Thank you for joining us. I know it's early morning there for you, but we are already there for far away in the afternoon.
Yeah,
so
pleasure being here for my Finnish friends and colleagues, and for everybody joining. I mean, probably you know that I've been traveling Finland for quite some time in my previous role, so really happy to be here.
Okay, that's absolutely great. And you have actually a very interesting topic to share with us today. So you're going to tell about the selected data transition into private cloud at SPS companies. So I'm sure this is the topic what many have been waiting. So I will give you now the presenter rights. So just a second. So then you should be able to take lead of the screen. Okay, so we are ready here to listen to your presentation. So stage is yours.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And again, thanks for joining and listening to what we are talking about today. I would like to present a story that we just recently had here with a company called SPS, a steel company based in Kansas in the United States. First of all, let me introduce myself very quickly. My name is ONE.CON Special Finland. I'm the CEO with CBS America. I'm with CBS for almost 10 years right now, in that industry for almost 25 years on the SAP consulting side, always been there, large or smaller consulting companies. And I moved over 3 years ago to build up our practice. We have actually grown quite a lot over the past 3 years. We are the second largest subsidiary of CBS in the meanwhile. And yeah, we had some very interesting projects in the S4HANA space over the past year. And one of those I would just like to present you. I would like to go over the company, what the company is doing, SPS company, how they actually came to the S4HANA, to their S4HANA transition story, why they chose the S4HANA cloud in a very early stage, and then of course also talking about why selective data transition, not one of the out of the other approaches, and giving you some insights into the project. Benefits, lessons learned, and if you do have any questions, of course, please use the chat. We will answer the questions at the end of this presentation. So let's do a deeper dive into the company. Very interesting story behind that company. It is about a 1 billion revenue company based out of Kansas. They have been founded 1933 as Kansas Hide and Wool Company those days. Since the early 1960s, they have solely done business in the style industry. They renamed themselves into Steel and Pipe Supply Company. It's still a privately held conglomerate of steel companies, so a lot of smaller entities. What they often do is they are selling and buying legal entities, so they do have some history in SAP with company codes which have been acquired or sold actually. Their operations is here in the US and in Mexico. So North American company. How did they come to SAP and how did that work? The first implementation took place with 4.6c in 2001. So they are one of the companies that have been using SAP for quite some time, 20 years actually right now. The expansion in the ERP footprint started actually 2004. They had a couple of acquisitions done those days. They have implemented those into the SAP system in a greenfield approach. So the system has been growing a lot over the years, and they have also done a lot of upgrades over the past years. Their IT team is not large, but they are very experienced. They have been dealing with the system mainly by themselves, not a lot of help with external SIs. And they do also have a broad usage of SAP products around. C4C, Hypers Commerce, PI, a couple of third-party software. So you would probably not really think about that in a company that size, but they do have a large portfolio around the ECC core system. So then in 2018, with SAP S4HANA, they of course also thought about how can we move to SAP S4HANA, and then they decided to go on their journey with the roadmap. And the roadmap looked like this one here. So first of all, they were thinking of moving into a fresh, empty public cloud solution, the multi-tenant solution, as it was named those days. They wanted to move in there and do all the harmonization refurbishments that was needed. But then they had to change the plans because the SAP solution roadmap changed, and they actually got to the point that they thought the public solution does not cover our main requirements. One of the big things was that they're using a couple of third-party products in steel industry, specifically for the pricing and for the planning on the planning side. And in the public cloud, as you may know, there's no open door to implement third-party software. And that was actually one of the big reasons why they said, no, then we're going to a different solution. They opted for the then called single tenant edition cloud. And this, now you have to be a little bit precise and careful, because the single tenant edition, the STE, those days was a private cloud edition, which has changed recently, I believe, the end of last year. So if you're talking about the single tenant edition today, it is not a private cloud edition anymore, and they have actually also changed their contracts. It's now the EX cloud, and I will talk about this a little bit later. So contract signed in April 2019. The original plan was to move there with a conversion, because they didn't intend to do a lot of changes. They just wanted to move it over. However, they had acquired at the same time 2 legal entities, which they implemented in SAP S4HANA in that cloud edition upfront. They thought would be a great idea to have them in the S4HANA cloud right away, and have it some sort of a template. And that meant that they couldn't go with the conversion anymore. Why? Because the conversion does a full transition into an empty system. You take everything what you want, but you cannot do a merge of different systems. So this is why they actually talked to us. We met, first time we met was on Sapphire 2019. We were there, discussed, they were with a breakfast of us, and then they came across the selective data transition as this new third option. So they were quite interested in this, and this is what was actually the reason why they chose us and went further on with the selective data transition approach. But let's have also a couple of let's have a look on the couple of reasons why they actually went to the private cloud. So what they really wanted to do is they wanted to concentrate on their business, and this is what this is all about. They wanted to have the latest technology there, being ready for the future, have also some pushback to standard for future implementations, but also seeing value for new business functions, implementing some Fiori apps, not too many with the move, but being able to do so in a later stage. Then they wanted to get rid of the hardware and also have additional services coming from a provider around basis to concentrate on the functional side and leverage all the full cloud capabilities in their private environment. So that was mainly what I wanted to do. Also, last but not least, as I mentioned, their a company acquiring companies time by time, selling companies time by time, and of course the subscription model gives them the opportunity to do that without having any additional capex planning. So they can just decide whether they want to scale up or scale down in regards to their users. So then, of course, the big question was why selective data transition. I was talking around this a little bit already. To understand why they opted for it, I just need to touch base very quickly on the transition types. I know most of you know that already. New implementation as a greenfield is actually something where you work from scratch. You implement everything newly. You can go back to standard, but it's a lot of work, very complex, and it's some sort of a revolution, as we call it. Whereas the system conversion is mainly a move from A to B with whatever is in there, with some sort of an upgrade. Technically, it's not, but process-wise, it's more or less an upgrade. You would just do the must-dos in the conversion, but it's what we believe some sort of an evolution. That was the path that they actually opted for in the beginning because they didn't want to have too many changes while moving over. With a selective data transition, however, you do have a couple of additional options. You can combine the best out of both worlds, and you are able to reuse the things that you want to have and probably have also the custom solutions moved over. You can move over selectively data and processes, and this was why they in the end they came down to the selective data transition. One big thing here, one challenge is the deployment options, specifically in this project. Those are the current versions of SAP S/4HANA that you can buy. You all know the on-premise version. You probably know the HANA Enterprise Cloud, the HEC, which is mainly a hosting coming from SAP, or could also be a different other provider, Amazon Web Services, whatever. And then SAP specifically has 3 new options, and they have been remodeled with the Sub-RISE program, 3 new models of going into their SAP's cloud offerings. The HANA Cloud ES is a public cloud solution. There you would share the system with other companies. Of course, you have your own environment in there. The problem is in that system, you can only move in with a new implementation. Why? Because it's a publicly used system. Of course, you cannot move in with Z codes, with any customization, which is different from others. It's mainly a best practices or predefined process system. The S/4HANA Cloud EX, which was formerly known as the single tenant edition, is also a new implementation type of system. So here SPS had an old contract. They were allowed to do that. Technically, the Cloud EX and the private edition are pretty similar, but the Cloud EX comes with additional with additional services from SAP, and there's a restriction that you as a customer can do certain things. However, Cloud EX and the private edition are both a private model, so you would be moving into a private system. And as you can see here, the private edition is the one where you can actually use 3 different types: the new implementation, the conversion, and the selective data transition. And that was the reason for SPS to go into a private edition deployment option where they could move in with the selective data transition approach. When we look on the functional side and the process side, and this is a picture which comes actually from the customer. That we did not do that, and I like it very much. Why? Because it's showing what they're doing, where they're coming from. Customer always told me, well, we have flavors of green, we have flavors of brown, we have flavors of something, and this all needs to come together in that project. So what they wanted to have is with the Cloud EX, there was a requirement with the new system landscape. That's the green part. Also, they had this implementation of new companies, which they implemented based on best practice with a different configuration. And that made it even a little bit more complex. On the other side, they had a lot of historical transactional data, master data, of course, but also highly customized solutions they were familiar with, and they wanted to move over into that new system, and they wanted to keep. So business was demanding not to have too many changes just because of moving to SAP S/4HANA. In the end, the S/4HANA implementation strategy was driven by that mix, and with a selective data transition, they had the option really to mix that all up, come to some sort of an orange blend, which has then parts of the cloud, which has then parts of new implementation, but also minimal baggage with the move from the old system. What we also often talk about when we talk to customers is what are the challenges on the road to SAP S/4HANA, and you see a couple of those here on this slide. So the most or the main challenges I would not even see on the system side. I would actually see on the process side, specifically in the financial area, and when it comes to harmonizing processes, harmonizing data. We see a lot of work that has to be done around classic GL versus new GL. When you have to move to new GL, you should move to new GL. The existing processes are often too complex and should be streamlined. Master data should be harmonized. A lot of customers also say, hey, I mean, when we're moving over to SAP S/4HANA, why wouldn't we just use that as a chance to do a cleanup or to do additional changes in the organizational structure? So that having said, here are the reasons for SPS. Hold on. This was key for them. Out of those, they actually said, we need to align the financial structures. That was really key for them. They didn't want to change too much. They had different SAP landscapes and they wanted to move them into one. On the financial side, they moved from classic GL to new GL, including the historic data. And that brings a technical complexity into the project without probably seeing this so much from the outside. So and then let's talk about the actual scoping. What does that mean? This complexity. How would you see that in the project? So it was actually a transition combined with a merge of SAP ECC and SAP S/4HANA. Why this? Because they had this historically grown SAP ECC with about 30 company codes in there. Some of them were sold already, so they were unused company codes. They had a separate SAP S/4HANA private cloud instance where they had implemented 3 live entities, means 2 different systems, 2 different platforms, 2 different releases, and now they wanted to move that together. So I would say it's fair that we talk more than about a merge of those systems than of a transition. But for the main part, of course, it was a transition because most of their business has been in SAP ECC. How did we do that? We were actually moving over first of all, the historic configuration and merge that with SAP best practices, which is not easy, and which is also, I have to say that, cannot be done automatically. So here you need consultants doing this. Moving over the config you have done, there are a lot of conflicts in there. They wanted to keep both in parallel, and then in the later phase, move that together. The approach here for the technical move was that we would do a selective data transition of 15 out of 30 company codes, move them over into the new system, merge them with the private cloud system, 3 company codes, including a complete transition on the financial side, charts of accounts, cost center, profit center, harmonization and merge, activation of new GL, including doc splitting, and then the renaming of some company codes as well. And that was one of the biggest parts, move from the cost-based to account-based COPA. A lot of technical things, but also having a big impact on the financial side. The benefit here was that the full project was done in less than a year. They didn't have any disruptions during the transition on the business side. The business was, of course, knowing about the project. They did a lot of testing, but the actual move was really smooth. I guess we had 2 tickets coming up, which were in conjunction with the transition. All the other questions were around new functionalities. So that was really, really a good thing. Also, they did a cleanup of the merged system. Out of those 30 company codes, they left 15 behind, and we moved only 5 business years of the history because they said we don't need the rest. The rest is just history need for audits, but the 5 years back we want to see in the new system. And then last but not least, as I pointed out already, with that move to a new financial structure, we of course also transformed and harmonized all the financial documents backwards for the 5 years of data. So it means all the historic data that we moved over had been converted up on those new structures in new GL, including the document splitting, and they were reassigned to the new accounts and the charts of accounts, the new cost centers, profit centers. And that means, in a nutshell, the customer today sees those data in a way that they have never been implemented. So they see all the historically booked posted documents in this new structure, which of course gives them a big benefit in doing the comparison about 5 years back and where they are today and with the future. The biggest challenges here were the merge into the up and running private cloud from different perspectives. A merge project is always technically challenging. On the other side, moving from on-prem to cloud also does have an additional challenge level on top of it, because we might see bottlenecks there. The selective cut by year with the batches and inventory was something we needed to touch and talk about. So, I mean, and the question always is, what is 5 years backwards? Where is actually the red line? What would you take over? What would you not take over? And the extended downtime that we needed for the document splitting and for the conversion of the financial documents was also a huge challenge. You have to know that the AC Docker had to be built up completely from scratch. Everything in there had to be, all the documents had to be converted and posted into the AC Docker, and that typically needs a lot of time. So we did a lot of efforts to bring the downtime to actually down to a weekend, and that was not pretty clear in the beginning when we started with that project. So again, overview scope. There you can see it again in a picture or in an image. Left side, ECC on-prem, classic GL, individual configuration, data migrated only for the last 5 years, 15 company codes out of 30. On the right side, you see those two legal entities with new GL best practices. And what we did is we were moving this over with the conversion to S4, moving of config, customization, conversion of new GL and cost center, profit center, and the merge. Let's have a look on the original project planning, how that looked like. And this is fairly interesting because this gives you an idea about how much time would you need if you would do a project like this. So the original planning started, and again, I guess we were having the original project start date beginning of October. The customer was talking to us in April. We had a pre-study up front, so that process was pretty fast. Up from October, we were preparing everything. They had to do an upgrade on 1909. As you might know, when you're moving into an SAP private cloud, you are still obliged to do certain upgrades. And they said, hey, let's do the upgrade to 1909 first, which makes sense. And then we would actually do the transition into that latest upgrade. That did take some time. It also took some time to finalize their implementations in the S4 cloud of those new legal entities. Means the actual project start for us was around January. So we started here in January with the after the business go live of those new legal entities. And the plan was to go live late July. From a technical standpoint, we were totally on time. We were running through that project with 3 integration tests. We were all done. In the end, the customer decided to push out the go live to the end of the year, and there were 2 reasons for that. One was they were not sure about the new functionalities around S4, C4C, and they had a couple of Fiori apps that they didn't work out well. So they opted then in the end for an additional UAT or integration test 4, which we did in September. Everything was fine. And then in September, they said, we don't want to go live anymore right now because it's just the rest of the year. So we froze the system and the whole project and performed the go live in January 1st with the end of the business year. So it means we had some sort of a frozen zone afterwards, all planned. And again, as I told you, it worked out very well. Means the project itself had a timeline of a year. If you see the pure technical way and what you really need, I would say you can actually do a project like this also in 9 months if you work on that in a really ambitious way. But also one of the learnings here was, to be quite honest, this last 4th integration test was very, very helpful, specifically for the business side. We from the transition side, from the migration perspective, we did not need that. Everything worked out well after IT3, and we got the sign-off for the data migration part, but the business didn't really feel secure, and that was a big point for them. So means in the end, another integration test, go live in January, but for very specific reasons. And this is some sort of a template that we're using since then. If customers ask us, what is the fastest way to do this? I would say that that's it. On the other side, I also want to point out, I'm hearing time by time that customers would like to do a project like this in, I don't know, 12 weeks or so. I don't think this is possible because you have to do a lot of conceptual work. You have to validate the data. You have to go through 3 integration tests at least. So I just want to make you aware of, if you want to do a plan like this, you should have in mind 9 months is the minimum. And the more complex the system landscape gets, the more, of course, or the longer it takes. Benefits, a little bit more in details and key takeaways around that. The cloud migration, as that was one of the biggest obstacles they were seeing. Can we really move in with that system with selective data transition, with what we want to do from ECC 6.0 on-prem to SAP S/4HANA private cloud? And the answer is yes, they could do it. And this was the reason why they opted for the selective data transition. And I would like to share with you that this was actually the first of its kind project. I know that SAP has done 2 other projects, similar smaller projects with selective data transition, but in green empty shells of customers. So that was actually the first one where we did this cloud migration with selective data transition with a merge. Also, the selection of the company codes was a big benefit for them because they could leave behind stuff they didn't want to have anymore. 15 out of 30 were left behind, and all the others were. Some of them were renamed. Some of the inactive company codes and also the data of active company codes could be left behind. Data footprint reduction, that's a huge point. And honestly, we didn't believe it was that much. They took over only 5 years of the history out of those 20 years. 15 of the company codes means half of them were moved over. They came down to an 89% database reduction by doing this, in combination, of course, with the savings you usually have when you move to S/4HANA anyway. So S/4HANA is reducing a database footprint, yes, but on top of that, if you do something like this selectively, you can really bring down your database size, and that has a huge impact on everything, on the cost of the hosting, of course, but also on how you would maintain the system in future. Then next, the ONE Finance. So the ONE Finance piece here was a big one. And that was actually the biggest functional change for them. They had to go, they had to go to new GL. Why? Because in this new system, the new GL had been implemented already. We did this mapping of transactional data into the new universal ledger, the cost-based to account-based COPA change, which was, by the way, done for the very first time in a project like this. And then the charts of accounts to profit center conversion. All that brings them a lot of value on the financial side, and that was one of the reasons in their business case to actually move to SAP S/4HANA. Then the system merge, as I mentioned already, resolving conflicts between configuration and Z codes. We cleaned up the Z codes as well. We implemented a parallel configuration aside of the SAP best practices that they are using with all the new implemented company codes. We harmonized and consolidated the entire system, and that came along with that system while moving over. And then last but not least, of course, one of the big must-dos when moving to SAP S/4HANA is the business partner. What they did up front is they actually had a great concept how the business partner would be named, which concept we would actually follow. That was great. We also did a selection around the customers and vendors that were to be migrated. And they opted for one business partner for the same customer vendor with equal numbers. And as you might know, there are different ways to do that. Why do I mention this here? There's a huge benefit with that right now because they have actually a cleanup done in their system with the business partner, and that's what we would always recommend to do. However, if you want to go into such a project, I would highly recommend to have this concept available up front. If they wouldn't have had it, we would probably not been able to do that project in 9 months because this can be a huge discussion on the business side. How would we do that? Do we really have the equal numbers for customers and vendors? Do we have separate numbers? How do we do the cleanup? And again, big plus on the customer side here. Which brings me to my key takeaways. And there were a couple of things that probably in a year or so, everybody says, yeah, that's pretty clear. But I mean, you have to imagine we were starting this project or talking about this project mid of 2019, and it was not clear that time that it was possible to move to SAP S/4HANA and do a new GL conversion in that scenario. that was a key takeaway for them. So, I mean, it is possible. That's what we know. One thing I want to point out here very, very much is if you want to do a project like this with SAP or any other hosting provider, it's important to engage with them actively. SPS did this in a great way. We had joint calls over the project or after the project. Why is this so important? Because any deployment option comes with certain requirements and some restrictions, and you need to make sure that you know about them and that you're also working on them. And making the hosting team available when you would need additional copies, when you would need additional space, stuff like this. So that's really key. And then another thing is, and that's something I also would like to mention here. I told you the story about they had acquired a new company, new companies, and they thought it would be a good idea to have them implemented as a template in S/4HANA already, which is great from the standpoint that you would have them with fresh processes in a greenfield approach based on best practices. However, from the technical standpoint and the conversion standpoint, of course, it would have been much easier to move what we did here into an empty shell copy, because this merge of configuration and data was really bringing an additional complexity level in that project. Then on-prem ECC to cloud STE or private, in this case, private cloud with S/4HANA is possible. That move, that was also not clear in the beginning. Can we actually do that? Is it possible technically? Are we able to overcome all those challenges with the bottleneck? But that worked out very well. Number ranges is a big thing. Also here, the number ranges were prepared very well in the beginning. The customer did have a concept. And why is this important here? Well, we were doing a merge of two systems. That means you will, as a matter of fact, come to a point where you have conflicting number ranges for purchase orders, for customers, for whatever. You need to have the concept how you would deal with that. They had one, which made it pretty easy, because then we could do the mapping on top of that. And last but not least, as I mentioned already, the recommendation would be to implement the business partner up front. Again, we did it in the project. It worked out very well. They did have a concept available. However, if you really want to take out complexity of a project, that was also our learning here. And that's not only a customer learning. It's always a good thing to do the implementation of the business partner before you move. And you can do that in ECC. It's not a big thing. If you're thinking of moving to SAP S/4HANA in 2-3 years, this would be a great thing to do up front, just to save some time later in the actual move. And that's it from my side so far. Hope this was interesting for you. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Thank you, Lorenz. It was definitely interesting. So a lot of information coming, and I think this transition to cloud solutions quite interesting, and at least for me, who I'm not very much in a technology background, so a lot of new information and learning as well. So let's see if we have any questions there, or somebody raised hands. So maybe Lorenz, you can also check from the chat if anybody
Sure.
have said anything privately to you, but looks like that we don't have any questions here.
I see a question, and I was the person was wondering how long they took in order to prepare the actual S4 project, that preparation phase.
The preparation phase was not that long. Why? Because again, and this is something that we see very often here, at least in North America, customers that are moving to S4 try to solve only very few functional issues on the way. They would usually go over to or transition to SAP S/4HANA and have then an additional phase with new implementation of new functionalities. So that means the preparation phase was fairly short. However, as I said, there are a couple of things must-dos that you have to do on the way, like a business partner, and they took the time to do this up front. So I believe they were doing this. They were starting the project shortly after Sapphire 2019, and it was about, I would say, probably a quarter of a year when they did the preparation. And in parallel, again, they also did the implementation of the other two things in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, which gave them also some insights, of course, in SAP S/4HANA, which was something which they liked, yeah.
And also in the same phase, they did all that number range synchronization,
Yes.
template definition.
The definition, correct. So the concept and the definition was done in that first 3 months phase, yes.
Okay. Did they get external help on this or by themselves? Do you know this?
Not to my knowledge. And again, so the customer, they have an IT department with less than 10 people, and they were working very hard on that, and were very experienced, hands-on. I liked the approach, and most of the stuff was done by themselves. So the technical insights they could give us into what they want to do was pretty good.
If you would like to give one major tip for the companies who is now planning for the S/4HANA approaches and think about the cloud options, so is there something what you would like to raise? There was a lot of learnings in the presentation already, but something, for example, experience of this project was something like a surprise, which went really well, or something what was really challenging. So this kind of tips I think is always welcome. Well, because they come with the experience.
Yeah, it's all about the deployment option. Yeah, so have a look on what is the best deployment option for the business. Be aware of what does it mean to go into a public cloud, because there are differences. If you opt for a private cloud, have a look on the different options there, because again, some they bring value, some of them bring additional value, some of them come also with additional restrictions, and depending on how you would like to move over, that is really key. From a technical standpoint, I would say we were expecting much more obstacles there. The only thing we needed to do was to talk to the hosting provider on a frequent basis to make sure they understood what we were doing and what we would need. And this applies not only to the SAP cloud, this applies to any cloud provider.
Correct. Do we, Nina, have any more questions over there? Have you noticed or something?
No, don't see anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess then we are ready for the close our last presentation of today. So thank you, Lawrence, to wake up and join this with us. It was really interesting, and I guess, Nina, we are then ready to a little bit wrap up our day after this, right?
Yes.
So wrap up of the day. So what do you think, Nina? We have had 5 interesting presentations today. A lot of S/4HANA, of course, which is, I guess, the topic, but cannot be avoided at the moment. But anyway, it's a very interesting topic, and there's a different angles to go forward it. So it has been really interesting presentation. First from Jani Partonen from Oriola. Then we talk about the e-invoicing. We have Amer Sports. We had Daniel Marossi there. And then we have our colleague from logistics, going more for transportation management and warehouse management topics. And now Wärtsilä, after the lunch, about their journey to S/4HANA. And now in the end, Lawrence was talking about the transition for the private cloud. So quite many interesting topics today.
Yeah, and I think all the presentations from our customers, they present quite well the CBS portfolio, talking about health check topics, pre-study topics done by Wärtsilä, also our e-invoicing portfolio, our daughter company Logistics, they are also supporting us in our Oriola project. Also SPS with the first move into a private cloud. So I hope those presentations gave our participants quite a good understanding that we know what we are doing, and we hope that in the future we get a couple of requests from the ones who are still here online with us together, because we know what we are doing. We have a good and experienced team. Stefan and Tanya, you have showed this this morning in our session when we talked about our different entities all around the world. And also here you see one more time our portfolio. So we have quite a lot of experience in the different kind of areas. I don't know, Tanya, if you would like to show and to share here some comments on this slide.
Yeah, I was not planned to. This is like a CBS in one slide, so not going that on detail, but maybe point out that we are actually during this day with this different presentation, we have been covering quite many areas there. So of course, talking about a lot of these big transformation for S4HANA, and of course we are doing a lot of other major transformation, could be acquisitions and mergers or organizational changes in the company, which is the one of the core what we are doing. But in addition, we have the expertise of these different kind of other process areas, and today we had the talking about the logistics and this part, and also we were talking about the e-invoicing, and also then the third part in this slide is that this technology experience and knowledge what we have in the company. For example, now this cloud solutions what we were talking about today, and in the last presentation. So quite good coverage topics related to SAP together, for example, also the Salesforce knowledge. So in that sense, we are able to help you quite many kind of projects. So based on your needs. And bring the team to help you with these areas. So it's not need to be all of them, just the topic here and there based on your need. But I think it was nice that we were covering quite nicely this full big portfolio what we are having today during these presentations.
Yeah.
And anyway, if there's still few people in the chat, so please, it would be nice to hear a little bit your comments maybe to the chat as well, how you have feel it has today be useful and interesting for you. We are of course happy to hear some feedback as well. So for the future events, I'm sure they will be coming something. Let's see if something still in the springtime or in the fall. Hopefully soon that we can then have the events also face to face, not only here in the digital world what is now the current way of doing things. So let's see. So please feel free to send some feedback to the chat or later on. It would be really nice to hear. And maybe before we are closing, I have one slide here as well what I would like to. So maybe you have seen this if you are following up us, for example, in LinkedIn. So first of all, this gentleman in the picture is our CEO and the one of the founders of the CBS, Mr. Harald Sulovski. So this is just a short summary of our last year results. So even we all know that the last year has been really exceptional for everybody. So we have been learning the new ways of working, and a year ago there was a little bit shock for everybody when this pandemic started, but somehow year has been gone and we have this new normal way of working. So for the CBS side anyway, we were able to do quite a good year. So there has been turnover more than 100 million euros. Last year it was a growth around 13% from the previous year, and also our team has been grown. So we have approximately 700 consultants now CBS globally, and now of course the office here in Finland is also a new thing as well. So in that sense, we are happy that we have been able to continue the project with our customers after the maybe short hiccup in the springtime, but now have to find the ways to doing the project remotely as well, and see that also possible to do it, even it doesn't replace all the working together in the same room, but it's still doable, and we can go further with the project even this situation still continues a little bit like this, I think, for a while, but hopefully it will be changed at some point.
Yeah.
But that's maybe a short summary. So I guess in the end, we would like to thank you everybody joining us today, and hope that you have found this event useful and interesting, and worth to use your busy time for this instead from other tasks. So you will receive the link for the recording in the email. So if you want to have a look in the later on, you have to skip some of the presentation, so you're able to see it later on. So on my behalf, and I guess also Nina, we will say thank you of today, and let's stay in touch, and wish you sunny spring coming soon.
Thank you so much, everybody, for staying with us until the end.
Yeah, thank you.
Take
Have a
care.
nice day.
Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.